Hello everyone, and welcome to the DXD Tales. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei was the ultimate hybrid of dragon, devil, and angel. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Awakening. The impact of his body again. The concrete knocked the air from Issei's lungs. Above him, the night sky fractured into a kaleidoscope of stars as his vision blurred. Copper flooded his mouth, blood from where he'd bitten his tongue. His attacker's laughter echoed through the empty construction site, the sound unnaturally distorted as if traveling through water. Pathetic, the creature hissed. It no longer bothered maintaining its human disguise. Leathery wings unfurled from its back, stretching at least 12 feet across. Its skin had turned the color of congealed blood, and yellowed claws extended from elongated fingers. I expected more from someone carrying such interesting energy. Issei tried to scramble backward, his palms scraping against rough concrete. Every instinct screamed danger, but his body said to comprehend the impossibility before him. Devils weren't real, they couldn't be, yet the creature stalking toward him was undeniably demonic, from its twisted horns to the sulphurous stench rolling off its skin in waves. What are you? Issei managed, though he already knew the answer. Something primal within him recognized the creature for what it was. The devil's mouth split into a grin revealing rows of needle-like teeth. I'm the last thing you'll ever see, boy. Your energy signature has been lighting up the supernatural world like a beacon for weeks. I'm simply the first to claim the prize. It lunged forward with inhuman speed. Time slowed. Deep within Issei's chest, something ancient stirred. The sensation began as warmth spreading through his sternum, then ignited into searing heat that raced along his veins. 3 distinct energies awakened simultaneously: crimson, gold, and azure, each fighting for dominance within his body. The competing forces threatened to tear him apart from within. The devil's claws were inches from his face when Issei's body acted of its own accord. His arm shot up, palm outward. A concussive blast of tricolored energy erupted from his hand, catching his attacker mid-leap. The force sent the creature careening backward into a stack of steel beams that collapsed with a thunderous crash. Issei stared at his hand in shock. Traces of 3 distinct auras coiled around his fingers, crimson scales momentarily materializing on his skin before dissolving into golden light, then shifting to blue flame that left no burn. The devil extracted itself from the wreckage. Its expression transformed from arrogant confidence to wary calculation. Impossible, it muttered. The energies should be destroying each other. Unless. Its eyes widened. The prophecy. Issei struggled to his feet, his entire body thrumming with power he neither understood nor controlled. The competing energies caused visible distortions in the air around him, reality itself bending under the impossible combination of forces. I don't know what you're talking about, but I think you should leave me alone. The devil barked a laugh, though uncertainty flickered across its features. You've no idea what you are, do you? All the better. Your power is unstable, undisciplined. I'll still feast on your essence before delivering what remains to my master. It circled warily, testing for weaknesses. Issei tracked its movements, surprised at his newfound awareness. He could sense the creature's energy now, a dark miasma pulsing with malice. Stay back, Issei warned, surprised at the authority in his voice. The energies within him surged in response to his emotions, manifesting as visible auras surrounding his body. The devil feinted left before attacking from the right, moving faster than any human could track. But Issei wasn't reacting as a human anymore. His body twisted with unnatural grace, evading the deadly claws by millimeters. Instinctively, he counterattacked, his fist connecting with the devil's sternum. The impact released another explosion of tricolored energy. The devil howled as contradictory forces tore through its body: dragon fire, holy light, and demonic power simultaneously burning, purifying, and corrupting its flesh. Issei staggered backward, overwhelmed by the energies cascading through him. His vision kaleidoscoped between different perceptions. One moment he saw normal human surroundings, the next he perceived ley lines of power crisscrossing the area, then glimpsed spectral impressions of past events layered over reality. The devil collapsed to its knees, its body disintegrating at a molecular level as the competing forces continued their destructive work. Others will come, It gasped. The hybrid must not rise. Its body crumbled into ash that scattered on the night breeze. The abrupt silence felt deafening. Issei sank to his knees, trembling uncontrollably as the adrenaline ebbed. The competing energies continued to war within him, each pulse sending spasms of pain through his body. His temperature fluctuated wildly, burning fever followed by bone-chilling cold. Blood trickled from his nose and ears. Impressive for a first manifestation, though you're about to self-destruct if those energies aren't stabilized. The voice came from behind him. Issei whirled, nearly losing his balance. A tall man with raven black hair stood watching him with clinical interest. He wore an expensive-looking charcoal suit, but what caught Issei's attention were the 12 jet black wings extending from his back. More importantly, the stranger continued, casually adjusting his cufflinks. That light show probably attracted every supernatural entity within 50 miles. We should relocate before. He cocked his head, listening to something beyond human perception. Too late. Decision time, kid. Trust me or face what's coming alone. Who are you? Issei demanded, though the words out slurred as another wave of pain crashed through him. Azazel, Governor General of the Grigori, Fallen Angel First Class, and currently your only viable option for surviving the next 5 minutes. He extended a hand. The sales pitch will have to wait. The night sky above them rippled as reality thinned. Multiple teleportation circles materialized, crimson, silver, and verdant green, each bearing different sigils. Figures began emerging from the portals, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Issei's instincts recognized danger even as his consciousness began to fade. The erring energies were overwhelming his system. Black spots danced across his vision. He reached for Azazel's offered hand just as his legs gave way. The fallen angel caught him effortlessly. Hold tight, kid. This might feel unpleasant. 12 wings enfolded them as Azazel murmured something in a language that resonated at frequencies beyond human hearing. The world dissolved into darkness. Consciousness returned gradually. Issei became aware of voices before he could open his eyes. Unprecedented combination. The energies should be annihilating each other. The voice was female, cultured and slightly sardonic. Yet they're not. Fascinating, isn't it? That was Azazel's voice, radiating intellectual curiosity. 3 inherently opposing forces coexisting in one vessel. Coexisting is generous terminology. They're tearing him apart from the inside. The woman's tone carried professional concern rather than personal investment. I've stabilized the immediate crisis, but without a more permanent solution. He'll be dead within days. The dragon aspect alone would eventually dominate a human body, but combined with both angelic and demonic essences. It's a miracle he survived adolescence. Probably dormant until tonight's confrontation triggered the awakening. A stress response. Quite the response, the woman remarked dryly. He vaporized a mid-tier devil with no training whatsoever. Which is why every faction is now scrambling to locate him. Good thing I got to him first. Your altruism is touching, the female voice replied with gentle mockery. I'm sure your interest is purely humanitarian. Quote, Akano. Azazel's tone carried mock offense. You wound me. Can't a fallen angel intervene to save a uniquely powerful hybrid without ulterior motives? In my experience, no. Issei finally managed to open his eyes. He lay on a bed in what appeared to be a well-appointed laboratory. Arcane equipment hummed softly around him. Complex magical circles glowed on the ceiling and floor, containing his body in a matrix of energy that somehow dampened the chaotic forces within him. Azazel noticed his consciousness immediately. Welcome back. How do you feel? Like I've been hit by a truck. Issei croaked, his throat painfully dry. Then the truck backed up and hit me again. Colorful but accurate, said the woman, Akano. She moved into Issei's field of vision, and his breath caught. She was striking in a way that transcended conventional beauty. Long raven hair fell in a silken waterfall to her waist. Her eyes, an unusual shade of violet, reader, dead him with clinical interest tempered with compassion. She wore a white laboratory coat over traditional shrine maiden attire, an odd combination that somehow suited her perfectly. You're fortunate to be alive, she continued, checking readings on equipment Issei didn't recognize. Most beings with conflicting supernatural heritages don't survive to birth, let alone adulthood. Supernatural heritages. Issei tried to sit up. But his muscles refused to cooperate. Ah, yes. Azazel pulled up a chair beside the bed. I suppose we owe you an explanation. Simply put, you're not human, or not entirely. Based on our preliminary analysis, you appear to be a unique hybrid of dragon, devil, and angel. Issei stared at him, waiting for the punchline. When none came, he shook his head. That's impossible. My parents are normal. I'm normal. Your physiological response suggests otherwise, Akino replied, gesturing to a holographic display showing 3 distinct energy signatures pulsing through a human form. Dragon essence. She pointed to crimson energy concentrating in the core and limbs. Devil lineage. Dark purple energy flowing through the circulatory system. An angelic heritage. Golden light suffusing the nervous system. All 3 active and competing for dominance. Which should be destroying you, Azazel added casually. These energies naturally repel each other. Angels and devils are fundamentally opposed forces, and dragons are notoriously incompatible with both. Yet here you are, somehow containing all 3. Issei's mind raced. The revelation should have seemed absurd. Yet it resonated with truth. He'd always felt different. Strange bursts of intuition, moments of inexplicable strength, dreams of flying through endless skies. But my parents are almost certainly not your biological parents, Azazel said gently. Given your age and the timing, I suspect you were hidden during the chaos of the last supernatural war. A being of your potential would have been far too valuable or dangerous to leave in the open. The revelation hit Issei like physical blow. His entire identity unraveled in an instant. The childhood memories, the loving family, were they all part of an elaborate deception? Why is this happening now? He asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Supernatural abilities typically manifest during late adolescence, Akino explained. The power awakens gradually in most cases, but sometimes a catalyst, like being attacked by a devil, can trigger a sudden manifestation. What that devil said about others coming for me, unfortunately accurate. Azazel's expression grew serious. Every major supernatural faction can sense a power anomaly like yours. Some will want to recruit you, others to study you, and then a few to eliminate you before you become a threat to the established order. The established order, Issei repeated. Azazel spread his hands. The supernatural world exists in delicate balance. Devils, angels, fallen angels. Various pantheons, yokai, dozens of factions maintaining an uneasy peace after millennia of conflict. Someone like you, embodying 3 opposing forces, represents a significant unknown variable. Many will consider you too dangerous to leave unchecked. Issei closed his eyes, trying to process the avalanche of information. When he opened them again, he found Akino studying him with analytical intensity. You're taking this surprisingly well, she observed. Am I? Issei laughed hollowly. I'm lying in a magical containment field after discovering I'm some possible hybrid of mythological creatures, with supernatural factions hunting me, while my body tries to tear itself apart from competing energies. Well, isn't the word I'd choose. Yet you're vital. Signs indicate remarkable adaptation to stress, she noted clinically. Most humans would be catatonic after such revelations and trauma. Perhaps that's the dragon aspect, Azazel suggested. Dragons adapt quickly to changing circumstances. It's one of their evolutionary advantages. Possibly, Akino conceded. Or perhaps he's simply in shock. I'm right here, Issei reminded them, irritation flaring. The crimson energy within him surged in response, and several monitoring devices began beeping alarmingly. Fascinating, Azazel murmured. The dragon aspect responds directly to emotional stimuli. Try to stay calm, Issei. Your energies are barely contained as it is. How am I supposed to stay calm? The question emerged more plaintively than Issei intended. Akino's expression softened slightly. A reasonable point. She adjusted something on one of the machines, and a soothing energy pulsed through the containment field. This should help temporarily, but it's merely addressing symptoms, not the underlying problem. Quote, which is, your 3 natures are fundamentally incompatible, she explained. Unless you learn to harmonize them, they'll eventually destroy you. And, how exactly do I harmonize forces that supposedly can't coexist? Azazel and Akino exchanged glances. That's the fascinating question, Azazel admitted. Theoretically, it should be impossible. Yet, Your very existence challenges that assumption. Theoretical impossibilities aside, Akino interjected practically, we need immediate measures to prevent cellular deterioration. I've designed a temporary solution. But it requires your consent. What kind of solution? Issei asked warily. A magical circuit that will channel and partially harmonize the competing energies. She gestured, and a complex geometric pattern appeared hovering above Issei's chest. It won't solve the fundamental incompatibility, but it should buy time to develop a permanent solution. And if I refuse, then, I estimate complete systemic failure within 72 hours, she answered matter-of-factly. Quite painful, I imagine. Issei studied her expression, searching for deception but finding only clinical honesty. Will it hurt? Considerably, Akino acknowledged. The process requires inscribing the circuit directly onto your spiritual core. But less than the alternative, Azazel added helpfully. Issei exhaled slowly. Not much of a choice, is it? Life rarely offers perfect options, Akino replied philosophically. Merely different forms of imperfection to choose between. Her candor was oddly reassuring. No false promises, no sugar-coating, just the unvarnished truth. Issei appreciated that more than empty comfort. All right, he decided. Do what you need to do. Akino nodded, seemingly unsurprised by his decision. I'll begin preparations. Rest while you can. As she moved away, Issei turned to Azazel. Why are you helping me? What's your stake in this? The fallen angel's expression became unreadable. Let's call it scientific curiosity for now. That's not an answer. No, Azazel agreed with a slight smile. It's not. He stood, adjusting his immaculate suit. Quote, but it's all you're getting until I'm confident of your potential. My potential for what? That, Azazel replied cryptically, depends entirely on the choices you make moving forward. Pain. Pure, transcendent, cellular level pain. Every nerve ending in Issei's body screamed as Akino inscribed the magical circuit onto his spiritual core. The process felt like being simultaneously frozen, burned, and electrocuted. He bit through his lower lip trying not to scream. Almost complete, Akino murmured, her voice distant through the haze of agony. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she maintained perfect concentration. Her hands tracing complex patterns in the air above Issei's chest. Violet energy flowed from her fingertips, weaving the stabilization circuit with meticulous precision. Issei's back arched involuntarily as the final connections formed. The competing energies within him, dragon, devil, and angel, were suddenly channeled into a structured flow rather than chaotic opposition. The relief was so intense it bordered on euphoria. He collapsed back onto the bed, gasping. The tricolored auras beneath his skin pulsed in synchronization now, following the pathways of Akino's circuit. Remarkable, she breathed, checking readings on her instruments. Complete integration at first attempt. Your body accepted the circuit as if it were made for it. As that, unusual, Issei managed between ragged breaths. Unprecedented, she corrected. Magical circuits typically require multiple applications before the spiritual body accepts them. Yours integrated instantly. Azazel stepped forward from where he'd been observing. As I suspected, his hybrid nature makes him uniquely adaptable. He studied the energy patterns with evident fascination. The circuit is holding beautifully. How long do you estimate it will maintain stability? Difficult to say with such an unusual subject, Akino replied, her clinical tone returning. Perhaps a few weeks if the energies remain at current levels. Less if they continue to strengthen. They're getting stronger, Issei asked. Exponentially, she confirmed. Now that they've awakened, your powers are developing at an accelerated rate. The circuit will eventually become insufficient. So this is just a temporary fix. A stopgap measure, Akino agreed. But it gives us time to develop a more permanent solution. She hesitated, studying him with unexpected intensity. And it gives you time to learn control. Control of your abilities, Azazel explained. Raw power without discipline is merely a liability. You need to understand your capabilities and limitations. Issei slowly sat up, testing his body. The constant pain had subsided to a dull pressure. He could feel the three distinct energies flowing through the circuit, no longer fighting each other but not truly unified either. An uneasy truce rather than harmony. Who's going to teach me? You, he asked Azazel. I understand fallen angel abilities well enough. Azazel replied with a shrug, but I'm hardly qualified to instruct you on draconic or devilish powers. Then who? I can assist with the basics, Akino said, surprising both men. I have some experience with mixed heritages. Something in her tone suggested personal experience. Issei studied her more carefully, noticing subtle indicators he'd missed before, an unusual N.R.G. signature beneath her controlled exterior, carefully concealed but detectable to his newly awakened senses. You're not entirely human either, he realized aloud. A fleeting expression crossed her face, surprise followed by wariness. Perceptive. Most can't sense it through my concealment. Half-fallen angel, Azazel provided helpfully, ignoring Akino's sharp glance. And exceptionally talented in magical theory. There's no one better qualified to help you understand the fundamentals of your awakening abilities. Akino's expression remained neutral, but Issei sensed her discomfort at having her heritage exposed. I apologize, he said quietly. I didn't mean to pry. She regarded him curiously, as if his apology was unexpected. No need for apologies. It's relevant information given the circumstances. Her tone was dismissive, but the slight relaxation of her shoulders suggested she appreciated the gesture nonetheless. So what happens now? Issei asked, looking between them. Now, Azazel said, we move somewhere more secure. This location was adequate for emergency treatment, but not for extended habitation. Too many factions know to look for my energy signature here. Where are we going? Neutral territory, Akino answered. A boundary zone where different supernatural realms overlap, creating interference that will mask your energy signature while you train. And my parents, my life. The questions emerged with unexpected emotion. Despite learning they likely weren't his biological family, Issei still felt deeply connected to the people who had raised him. Azazel and Akino exchanged glances. I'm afraid returning to your former life would endanger everyone involved, Azazel said gently. The devil that attacked you won't be the last. Until you control your abilities and protect yourself, proximity to you puts humans at risk. The reality of his situation crashed down on Issei with crushing force. Everything he knew, everyone he loved, all suddenly beyond reach. His life had irrevocably changed in the space of a few hours. Could I at least leave them a message? He asked quietly. Let them know I'm safe. Perhaps, eventually, Azazel hedged. But direct contact would create traceable connections. For now, complete separation is safest for all concerned. Issei nodded slowly, the pain of this loss somehow sharper than the physical agony he'd just endured. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to focus on immediate concerns. How long before we can leave? You should rest first, Akino advised. Your body needs time to adapt to the circuit. There's no time, Issei countered, surprising himself with his certainty. If what you said is true, other factions are already searching for me. Staying here puts us all at risk. Akino raised an eyebrow. The circuit is barely stabilized. Movement could disrupt the integration. Then we'll deal with that if it happens, Issei said firmly. Something primal within him, the dragon aspect, perhaps, rebelled against remaining vulnerable in one location. I'd rather face complications while moving than wait for enemies to find us. Azazel studied him with newfound interest. Tactical thinking. Good. He nodded approvingly. I agree. Better to relocate immediately. Akino can monitor the circuit en route. Akino looked like she wanted to object further but eventually nodded. Very well. I'll prepare a teleportation circle that accommodates your unique energy signature. It will take approximately 20 minutes. As she moved away to begin preparations, Azazel offered Issei a set of clothes to replace his torn and bloodstained ones. You continue to surprise me, the fallen angel commented. Most would be catatonic after what you've experienced today. Issei nagged a weak smile as he carefully pulled on the fresh shirt. Believe me, I'm screaming internally. Yet externally you're making rational decisions under extreme pressure. Azazel handed him a pair of boots. That's rarer than you might think. Doesn't feel special, Issei muttered. Feels like barely holding it together. That's all any of us are ever doing, Azazel replied with unexpected candor. The difference is whether we manage it effectively or not. He helped Issei to his feet when it became clear the young man was still unsteady. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this remarkably well. Thanks, Issei said dryly. I'll add that to my list of unexpected life accomplishments. Right after surviving impossible hybrid biology, and vaporizing my first devil. Zazzle laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. I think I'm going to enjoy working with you, kid. The teleportation circle Akeno created was unlike anything Issei had ever seen, not that he'd seen many before today. Unlike the standardized circles used by the devil or the elegant formations preferred by angels, this was an intricate hybrid construction incorporating elements from multiple magical traditions. Custom design, she explained, noting his interest. Standard teleportation magic wouldn't accommodate your unique energy signature without potentially harmful interactions. You created this, just now? Issei asked, impressed. Theoretical magical integration is my specialty, she replied with subtle pride. Particularly cross-faction adaptations. She's being modest, Azazel interjected. Akeno is probably the foremost expert on integrating disparate magical systems. Her research has advanced supernatural understanding by decades. A slight flush colored Akeno's cheeks at the praise, though her expression remained composed. The circle is ready. It will transport us directly to the boundary zone between the three realms, a location where dragon, devil, and angelic territories overlap. Creating a perfect environment for you to explore your abilities, Azazel added. Issei stepped carefully into the circle, watching as the intricate patterns began to glow in response to his proximity. The three energies within him resonated with different elements of the design, creating harmonic vibrations that were somehow both visible and audible. Fascinating, Akeno murmured, observing the interaction. The circle is responding to each aspect of your nature independently yet harmoniously. I've never seen anything like it. Is that good or bad? Issei asked warily. Neither. Simply unusual, she replied. Like everything else about you. Azazel joined them within the circle's boundaries. Remember, the transition might be uncomfortable given your condition. If you feel the circuit destabilizing, tell Akeno immediately. Issei nodded, bracing himself as Akeno activated the teleportation sequence. The patterns beneath their feet began rotating in multiple directions simultaneously, generating a field of energy that enveloped the three of them. The laboratory dissolved around them, replaced by a disorienting kaleidoscope of fractured realities. Issei caught glimpses of multiple realms as they traversed the boundaries between worlds, the crimson skies of the underworld, the pristine light of heaven, the primal wilderness of the dragon realm, all bleeding into each other at the edges. The three energies within him responded violently to the transition, each trying to pull him toward its corresponding realm. Pain lanced through his chest as the magical circuit struggled to maintain balance. The stabilization circuit is fluctuating, Akeno warned, her voice distorted by the teleportation field. His energies are destabilizing. Almost there, Azazel replied tensely. Hold it together for 10 more seconds, kid. Issei gritted his teeth, concentrating on the circuit Akeno had created. He visualized the flow of energies, willing them back into the established pathways. To his surprise, they responded to his mental direction, reluctantly at first, then with increasing compliance as he focused his intention. The teleportation field collapsed around them as they materialized in their destination. Issei staggered, nearly falling before Azazel steadied him. You did it, Akeno said, genuine surprise coloring her voice. You consciously redirected the energy flow. Is that significant? Issei asked, still disoriented from the transition. Extremely, she confirmed. Most beings require months of training before achieving conscious control of their spiritual energies. Azazel nodded thoughtfully. Another indication of your potential. Your connection to your powers is unusually strong for someone who just awakened. I was about to respond when his attention was captured by their surroundings. They stood on a rocky plateau overlooking one of the most extraordinary landscapes he had ever seen. Three distinct territories converged in a breathtaking geographical impossibility. To the east, floating islands drifted among crimson clouds, connected by bridges of dark energy, clearly part of the Devil Realm. Northward, mountains of impossible height pierced golden skies where winged figures could occasionally be glimpsed flying between gleaming towers. And to the west stretched primeval forests and valleys where massive shapes moved among ancient trees, the air heavy with primal power. The triumvirate convergence, Azazel announced. one of the few places where the three realms exist in geographic proximity. The boundary magics create a neutral zone approximately 10 miles in diameter. It's incredible, Issei breathed, overwhelmed by the majesty before him. And perfectly suited to your unique nature, Akeno added. Each territory will resonate with a different aspect of your power, allowing you to explore them individually before attempting integration. As if responding to her words, the re-energies within Issei pulsed in sequence, each strengthening as he gazed upon its corresponding realm. The sensation wasn't painful now but exhilarating, like different parts of himself awakening after long dormancy. I feel them, he murmured in wonder. Each aspect has its own consciousness almost. Spiritual affinity, Akeno explained. Each supernatural lineage carries its own inherent nature. The dragon aspect embodies power and freedom, the devil, ambition and desire, the angel, purpose and principle. All typically incompatible, Azazel reiterated. Which makes you uniquely interesting. A structure stood near the center of the plateau, a modernist building of stone, glass and steel that somehow complemented rather than intruded upon the supernatural landscape. Its N incorporated elements from all three realms, creating an architectural harmony that mirrored the magical balance of the location itself. Our base of operations, Azazel explained, leading them toward it. Built specifically within the boundary neutrality zone. No faction holds authority here, which makes it perfect for our purposes. As they approached, Issei noticed intricate wards shimmer fly around the perimeter, complex magical defenses that analyzed then admitted them without interference. The interior proved as impressive as the exterior, spacious rooms filled with both modern technology and ancient artifacts. Seamlessly integrated. The laboratory is downstairs, Akeno informed him, indicating a spiral staircase. Along with training facilities designed for various supernatural abilities. The upper level contains living quarters and a library of relevant texts. You planned for this, Issei realized, looking at Azazel. This place wasn't created on a whim after finding me. The fallen angel smiled enigmatically. Let's say I've long maintained facilities for studying unusual supernatural phenomena. Your case is exceptional, but not entirely unanticipated. What does that mean? Issei pressed. Before Azazel could answer, alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. Holographic displays activated automatically, showing multiple teleportation signatures forming at the edge of the boundary zone. It appears our arrival didn't go unnoticed, Azazel remarked with irritating calmness. Impressive. They tracked us despite the interference field. Akeno moved to a control panel, fingers flying across the interface. 3 distinct factions, devil, angel, and she frowned. Dragon, all approaching simultaneously but separately. Issei felt his stomach drop. They found us already. How? Your energy signature is unique, Azazel explained, monitoring the displays with analytical interest. And apparently more detectable than we anticipated. Fascinating. Is fascinating really the appropriate reaction right now? Issei demanded. For a researcher, yes, Azazel replied unrepentantly. For someone in our tactical situation, perhaps not. He turned to Akeno. Defensive options. The boundary zone limits direct confrontation between factions, she replied. They can't attack each other without violating ancient treaties. But nothing prevents them from pursuing Issei individually. And the facility's defenses, sufficient against standard forces, but these readings indicate high-level representatives from each faction. Akeno's expression grew concerned, including. She magnified one of the displays, focusing on a particular energy signature. Valifor. Azazel's casual demeanor vanished instantly. Are you certain? The energy pattern is unmistakable. Who's Valifor? Issei asked, alarmed by their reaction. Duke of Hell, specialist in locating hidden beings and artifacts, Azazel explained tersely. And remarkably lethal when he chooses to be. If the devils sent him, they're not interested in recruitment. What about the others? Akeno analyzed the remaining signatures. The angelic contingent appears to be a standard purification squad. And the dragon, she hesitated. It's unclear. The signature is ancient and powerful, but not one I recognize. Issei looked between them, fear and frustration building. So what do we do? Run again? No, Azazel decided after a moment's consideration. Running would start a pattern we can't sustain. We need to establish boundaries now. How exactly do we do that against forces that apparently want me dead or captured? A slow smile spread across Azazel's face, the expression of someone who thrived on dangerous situations. By introducing you formally to supernatural society, of course. That's your plan? Issei asked incredulously. Walk out and say hello to people trying to kill me. With style, Azazel clarified. First impressions matter in supernatural politics. The boundary zone protocols will prevent immediate violence, Akino added more helpfully. It gives us opportunity for dialogue before anyone can attack. Issei took a deep breath. Considering their limited options, running meant perpetual pursuit. Hiding was apparently impossible given his detectable energy signature. Perhaps confronting the situation directly was their only viable strategy. All right, he decided, but I need to understand what I'm facing. If I'm going to represent myself to 3 supernatural factions, I should at least know something about what I am. Azazel nodded approvingly. Practical thinking. The short version is this. Dragons are beings of power and instinct, embodying natural forces in their purest form. Devils represent ambition, desire, and self-determination, choosing one's own path regardless of cosmic dictates. Angels embody purpose, order, and principle, the structured foundation upon which reality functions. And I'm somehow all 3. In theory, impossible, Akino reiterated. These forces naturally oppose each other. Dragons resist both infernal and divine authority. Devils and angels have been in opposition since creation itself. For all 3 to exist within one being. Yet here you stand, Azazel concluded. The impossible made manifest, which is precisely why you're so valuable, or threatening, depending on one's perspective. Issei absorbed this, feeling the 3 distinct energies resonate with Azazel's descriptions. Each aspect called to different parts of his nature, the dragon to his desire for freedom, the devil to his ambitions. The angel to his sense of justice. How do I present myself? What do I say? Be straightforward but confident, Azazel advised. Make it clear you're not aligning exclusively with any faction. Establish yourself as an independent entity deserving of diplomatic consideration. And if they don't accept that, then we discover precisely how powerful you truly are. Azazel replied with unsettling enthusiasm. Akino shot him a disapproving glance before addressing Issei more pragmatically. The circuit I created should give you access to basic abilities from all 3 aspects of your nature. Not mastery, but enough to demonstrate potential. The alarms changed pitch, indicating the approaching forces had reached the outer perimeter of the facility. Time to meet your admirers, Azazel announced cheerfully. They assembled on the plateau outside the facility, facing the 3 approaching contingents. Each group maintained careful distance from the others, observing ancient territorial protocols even in their pursuit of Issei. The devil delegation approached from the east, 5 figures led by a tall, aristocratic man with silver hair and eyes like burnished gold. His movements possessed predatory grace, and the power radiating from him made the air shiver. Duke Valifor, Azazel identified quietly. One of the original 72 pillars of the underworld hierarchy. Ancient and dangerous beyond measure. From the northern boundary came the angelic contingent, 3 winged figures in gleaming armor, their faces obscured by helmets that emitted golden light from their visors. They carried spears that hummed with purifying energy. Purification Squad, Akino murmured. Specialized in eliminating threats to the divine order. The western approach held perhaps the most intimidating presence, a single figure that appeared human at first glance. A woman with azure hair cascading to her waist, wearing simple clothing that belied the immense power radiating from her form. As she drew closer, Issei could see hints of her true nature, scales occasionally manifesting on her skin, her eyes vertically slitted like a reptile's. Azazel's expression registered surprise. Tiamat, he breathed, one of the 5 dragon kings. What in creation would bring her here personally? The 3 factions halted approximately 50 yards from Issei's position, maintaining equal distance from each other. The tension in the air was palpable, ancient enmities barely contained by diplomatic protocol. Duke Valifor spoke first, his voice cult-ered and melodious despite the inherent threat in his words. The hybrid will accompany the devil delegation for proper evaluation and containment. This matter falls under underworld jurisdiction as decreed by the supernatural accords. Your jurisdiction extends only to demonic entities, countered one of the angelic figures, voice resonating with harmonic overtones. This being carries Celestia, L essence and must be purified according to heaven's protocols. Both of you overreach, Tiamat stated, her voice carrying both feminine musicality and draconic rumble beneath. Dragon blood flows strongest in his veins. He belongs under draconic protection and guidance. Fascinating how quickly protection becomes possession. In diplomatic speech, Azazel commented loudly enough for all to hear. Perhaps we might consider the being in question has his own preference regarding his fate. All three contingents turned their attention to Issei, who suddenly felt the crushing weight of their scrutiny. The magical circuit Akeno had created pulsed in response to the competing supernatural pressures, struggling to maintain balance. Issei stepped forward, summoning courage he didn't know he possessed. The dragon aspect of his nature provided instinctive confidence, the devil analytical cunning, and the angel principled resolve. For the first time, he felt the three energies working in concert rather than opposition. My name is Issei Hyodo, he stated, his voice carrying across the plateau with unexpected authority. Until yesterday, I believed myself human. Today I learn I am Bo. Die three supernatural lineages supposedly incapable of coexistence. He looked directly at each faction representative in turn. I understand your interest in my existence. I even understand your concern about what I represent. But I will not be claimed as property by any faction. Duke Valifor's expression darkened. Bold words from someone who can barely control his own power. The stabilizatio N circuit keeping your energies from destroying you is already failing. Without proper containment, you're merely a walking catastrophe. Issei felt a chill at the devil's accurate assessment. He glanced quickly at Akeno, who nodded slightly, confirming Valifor's claim. The circuit requires adjustment, she admitted quietly. It's degrading faster than anticipated. Then perhaps I can offer assistance, Tiamat interjected. Stepping closer, her movement caused immediate tension among the other factions. Dragon magic specializes in containment of primal forces, just as devil binding specializes in control of chaotic energies. Valifor countered smoothly. While angelic purification provides perfect balance, added the lead angel. Issei felt their competing influences pulling at different aspects of his nature, threatening to tear him apart spiritually just as his awakening had threatened physically. Each faction sought to amplify their corresponding aspect of his power while suppressing the others. In that moment of crisis, clarity struck him. They were all wrong, and fundamentally misunderstanding what he was. No, he said firmly, causing all three factions to look at him in surprise. I don't need any single aspect controlled or amplified. I need harmony. Akeno's eyes widened slightly. Of course, she breathed. Not suppression but integration. With deliberate intent, Issei focused on the circuit within him, visualizing not separate channels for each energy but a true integration. Dragon, devil, and angel flowing together as complementary rather than opposing forces. To his astonishment, the energies responded, gradually shifting from parallel flows to a genuine blending. A new aura manifested around him, not the separate crimson, purple, and gold energies but a new iridescent power that contained elements of all three while being something entirely unique. The stabilization circuit Akeno had created began to reconfigure itself in response, evolving beyond its original design. Impossible, Valifor whispered, his composure finally cracking. Unprecedented, corrected the angelic leader. Tiamat simply watched with ancient eyes that reflected both wariness and fascination. The transformation completed, leaving Issei standing in an aura of integrated power that pulsed with stable rhythm. For the first time since his awakening, he felt true. Why balanced? Not three competing natures but a single harmonious identity. I appreciate your concerns and your offers, he addressed the three factions. But I believe my path forward requires understanding all aspects of my nature equally. I cannot align exclusively with any single faction without denying essential parts of myself. A diplomatic refusal, Valifor noted with grudging respect. But ultimately meaningless. Your existence represents too significant a variable to leave unmonitored. I'm not proposing complete independence, Issei clarified, surprising Azazel and Akeno. I understand the need for oversight. What I propose instead is balanced observation, representatives from each faction contributing to my education and monitoring my development. The three faction leaders exchanged wary glances. Centuries of conflict making cooperation seem impossible. Yet the unprecedented nature of the situation demanded unprecedented solutions. Such an arrangement would require neutral territory, the angelic leader stated, and equal access, added Valifor. With protocols preventing undue influence from any single faction, Tiamat concluded. Azazel stepped forward, spreading his hands. Fortunately, this facility meets all those requirements. Built at the convergence of all three realms, specifically designed for cross-faction research. The three faction leaders fared briefly with their respective contingents, evaluating the proposal. Finally, Valifor spoke for the group. A provisional arrangement may be acceptable, provided strict protocols are established. Regarding the hybrid's development and monitoring. Issei, the young man corrected firmly. My name is Issei Hyodo. Valifor's golden eyes narrowed slightly at the correction, but he inclined his head in acknowledgement. As you wish, Issei Hyodo. We will establish a formal concordat within 7 days. Until then, you will remain here under observation from all three factions. With Azazel and myself as neutral intermediaries, Akino added quickly. The fallen angel's neutrality is questionable at best, the angelic leader observed. Yet his facility and expertise are currently irreplaceable. Tiamat countered pragmatically. I propose daily rotation of factional observers, beginning immediately. The details were negotiated with surprising efficiency, supernatural diplomacy. Moving quickly once the fundamental agreement was established. Within an hour, provisional protocols were in place. Each faction would send a representative to observe and instruct Issei in their respective supernatural traditions, while Azazel and Akino would oversee his general development and maintain the neutral facility. As the faction contingents prepared to depart, Tiamat approached Issei directly. The Dragon Queen studied him with ancient eyes that seemed to peer into his very essence. You achieved in moments what should have taken years of training, she observed. Preliminary ration of opposing supernatural energies. It just felt right, Issei replied honestly. Like they wanted to work together if given the chance. A slight smile curved her lips. Interesting interpretation. Most would perceive only the conflict between such forces, not their potential harmony. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to ensure privacy. Dragons value strength above all else, young hybrid. But the wisest among us recognize that true strength comes in many forms. I look forward to discovering which form yours ultimately takes. With that cryptic statement, she departed, leaving Issei to contemplate his uncertain future. That evening, Issei stood on the balcony of his assigned quarters, watching as the three realms transitioned from day to night. The underworld territories glowed with ethereal purple fire, heaven's golden towers dimmed to silvery luminescence, and the dragon realm pulsed with bioluminescent life among ancient trees. Akino joined him silently, offering a steaming cup of tea. For the nerve pain, she explained. The integration process taxes the spiritual nervous system. He accepted gratefully, not bothering to ask how she knew about the persistent ache along his spine. Thank you for everything today. She leaned against the railing beside him, her own cup cradled between elegant hands. You surprised everyone, myself included. How so? The integration you achieved shouldn't have been possible for someone with no prior training or knowledge of supernatural energies. She studied him with renewed interest. Yet you managed it instinctively. As if you'd always known how. Issei sipped the tea, welcoming its soothing warmth. I can't explain it. When everyone was arguing about which aspect should dominate, it just seemed wrong. Like trying to choose between breathing and having a heartbeat. They're all essential parts of who I am. Akino considered this an apt analogy. Perhaps that's the key to your unique nature. You don't perceive these energies as inherently opposed because you've always contained all three, even when dormant. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the supernatural landscape shift her impossible colors as night deepened. Finally, Issei asked the question that had been troubling him since the confrontation. Do you think the agreement will hold? Or am I just delaying the inevitable conflict? Akino's expression grew thoughtful. Supernatural politics are complex and ancient. None of the factions fully trust each other, too much history, too many betrayals. But your existence has created something rare, a shared interest in understanding a new phenomenon. So I'm a fascinating research subject, Issei summarized with a wry smile. For now, she agreed candidly. You demonstrated today that you're more than a passive element in this equation. You forced 3 ancient powers to acknowledge your agency and adapt their approaches accordingly. Is that significant? Extraordinarily so, Akeno confirmed. Most beings with newly awakened powers would have been claimed or destroyed immediately. You negotiated terms with entities that have existed for millennia. That alone establishes you as someone to be reckoned with. The praise should have felt good, but Issei only felt the crushing weight of expectation. I have no idea what I'm doing, he admitted quietly. Everything I did today was instinct and desperation. To his surprise, Akeno smiled genuinely for the first time, the expression transforming her reserved demeanor into something warmer and more approachable. That's precisely what makes you interesting, Issei Hyodo. Pure instinct allowed you to achieve what centuries of supernatural theory deemed impossible. She turned to leave but paused at the doorway. Rest well. Tomorrow you begin learning what you truly are, and perhaps more importantly, what you might become. As she departed, Issei turned back to the extraordinary vista before him. 3 realms, 3 heritages, 3 destinies, all converging in one impossible existence. His existence. For the first time since his awakening, fear gave way to something else, determination. Whatever he was, whatever he might become, he would forge his own path rather than follow any predetermined destiny. The 3 energies within him pulsed in harmonious agreement, no longer fighting but unified in purpose. A new journey was beginning, one without precedent or guidebook. But as he watched the boundary between realms shimmer with potential, Issei realized he wouldn't want it any other way. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Dragon's Blood. Dawn crept across the triumvirate convergence in waves of impossible color. From Issei's balcony, he watched as light spilled first across heaven's gleaming spires, transforming them from silver to molten gold. The radiance cascaded down, eventually reaching the primordial forests of the dragon realm where ancient trees captured the light in their canopies, creating a sea of emerald and amber. Last to receive the sun's touch was the underworld territory, where floating islands slowly shed their cloak of shadow, revealing structures of obsidian and crimson crystal. 3 worlds, 3 realities, 3 aspects of himself, all illuminated by the same dawn. Sleep had proven elusive. Each time Issei closed his eyes, his consciousness had scattered across fractured dreamscapes, soaring through storm clouds on wings of scale and fire, wandering labyrinthine corridors of some vast infernal palace, standing sentinel atop an impossible toe that pierced the very fabric of creation. Not mere dreams but memories that couldn't possibly be his. The door behind him opened without a sound. Issei didn't turn. He'd sensed Azazel's approach before the fallen angel reached the threshold. Another new ability. Awareness of supernatural presences, each with its distinct signature. Trouble sleeping? Azazel asked, joining him at the balcony rail. Is it obvious? The bags under your eyes suggest you've been awake since our little diplomatic summit yesterday. The fallen angel produced a small silver flask, offering it casually. Care for something stronger than tea? Issei declined with a slight shake of his head. Too early for me. Suit yourself. Azazel took a sip, leaning comfortably against the railing. The dreams can be disorienting at first. Issei glanced at him sharply. How did you? Standard manifestation for awakening supernaturals, Azazel explained. Particularly those with heritage connections. Your Ood lines are attempting to re-establish connections to their origins through your subconscious. They felt like memories. In a way, they are. Genetic memory, spiritual resonance, racial consciousness. Different traditions use different terminology, but the essence is the same. Your heritage communicating with you through symbolic imagery. Issei frowned, recalling fragments of his fractured sleep. There was a mountain range, impossibly tall, piercing crimson clouds. I was flying through a storm, but I wasn't afraid. It felt, he searched for the right word, exhilarating. The calamity peaks in the deepest dragon realm. Azazel identified immediately. Few non-dragons have ever glimpsed them. Your draconic aspect is establishing primacy in your dreams. Why would one aspect dominate? Think of it as competing operating systems trying to run simultaneously. Eventually, one establishes priority, at least temporarily. Issei contemplated this, feeling the 3 distinct energies circulating within him. Since yesterday's confrontation, they'd maintained a tentative harmony, but he could sense the dragon essence pulsing slightly stronger than the others this morning. The dragon aspect wants control now. Not control exactly, came a new voice from the doorway. More like, attention. They turned to find Akeno entering the balcony, dressed in what appeared to be a modernized shrine maiden outfit, traditional red and white, but redesigned for practicality. Her long raven hair was gathered in its usual ponytail, and she carried a tablet displaying complex magical formulas. Your circuit readings spiked during the night, she continued, showing Issei the screen. The dragon essence consistently elevated above the others, particularly during REM sleep. Is that dangerous? Issei asked. Not immediately, she replied. But maintaining long-term balance requires understanding each aspect individually before attempting continued integration. The dragon essence is simply the most insistent at present. Azazel nodded thoughtfully. Makes sense. Dragons are fundamentally creatures of instinct and action. The others tend toward contemplation and planning. So what do we do about it? Issei asked. We address it directly, came a fourth voice, deeper, female, with a subtle rumble underlying each syllable. All three turned toward the sound. Tiamat stood in the doorway, her human appearance even more convincing in daylight. If not for her unusual azure hair and the occasional glint of scale-like reflections on her skin, she might have passed for a remarkably beautiful human woman. She wore simple clothing, dark pants and a sleeveless tunic that revealed arms corded with lean muscle. The draconic essence requires acknowledgement and expression, she continued, entering without waiting for invitation. Suppress it, and it grows only more demanding. Azazel raised an eyebrow. I wasn't expecting our draconic observer until this afternoon. I arrived early. Tiamat replied without apology. Her attention remained fixed on Issei, studying him with predatory intensity. You denied yourself sleep to avoid the dreams. A futile strategy. Issei met her gaze steadily, surprised at his own boldness. Something in his nature recognized her power yet refused to cower before it. They're disorienting. Of course they are. You're Experian. Qing primordial draconic memory without context or preparation. She approached him with fluid grace, moving like water flowing around obstacles. Your human mind cannot properly process what your dragon blood remembers. Without warning, she reached out and pressed her palm against his chest, directly over the magical circuit Akeno had created. Issei gasped as heat flared beneath her touch, not painful but intensely stimulating. As if something long dormant was awakening to her call. Remarkable, she murmured. True dragon essence, not merely power borrowed or stolen, yet harmonized with its natural opposites. Her slitted pupils dilated slightly. Who were your parents, hybrid? I don't know, Issei admitted. I was raised by humans who I thought were my biological family until 2 days ago. Tiamat withdrew her hand, her expression unreadable. Someone went to considerable effort to conceal your existence. Even from yourself. That's what we're attempting to uncover, Azazel interjected smoothly. Along with helping Issei understand and control his unique abilities. The Dragon Queen's gaze shifted to Azazel, ancient suspicion evident in her expression. And what does the Grigori gain from this arrangement? Fallen one, your kind rarely acts without self-interest. Intellectual curiosity, Azazel replied with a disarming smile. And the opportunity to study an unprecedented supernatural phenomenon. Half-truths, as always, Tiamat observed coldly. Akeno cleared her throat delicately. Perhaps we might focus on the immediate concern. The dragon essence's domain. Ants needs addressing before the other observers arrive. Tiamat considered her for a moment before nodding. The half-fallen speaks sense. The hybrid requires proper draconic instruction immediately. Issei, he corrected firmly. My name is Issei Hyodo. Tiamat turned to him, something like approval flickering briefly across her features. Names have power, particularly among dragons. Do you claim this human name as your true identity? The question carried weight beyond its simple phrasing. Issei sensed layers of meaning, cultural, magical, spiritual. It's the only name I've ever known, he replied carefully. Until I discover any other, it remains who I am. A diplomatic answer, she acknowledged. Very well, Issei Hyodo. I will instruct you in the fundamentals of your draconic heritage. Meet me in the central courtyard in 30 minutes. Without waiting for agreement, she turned and departed with the same fluid grace that marked her arrival. Once she was gone, Azazel released a low whistle. Well, that was interesting. Tiamat isn't known for personal instruction. Most dragons consider her unapproachable. Is that significant? Issei asked. Extremely, Akeno replied. Tiamat is one of the 5 dragon kings, among the most ancient and powerful draconic entities in existence. For her to take personal interest in your development. She trailed off, her expression troubled. She wants something. Azazel finished bluntly. The question is what? Issei absorbed this, feeling the dragon essence within him resonating with anticipation. Whatever her motives, I need to understand this part of myself. If the dragon aspect is asserting dominance, I should learn how to address it properly. Akeno nodded reluctantly. Logical, but proceed with caution. Drago. NS operate by different cultural and ethical frameworks than humans or even other supernaturals. Their values and priorities are alien in many respects. She won't harm him, Azazel said confidently. At least not intentionally. Tiamat agreed to the observational protocols, and dragons consider such agreements binding. Within their specific interpretation, Akeno qualified. I'll be careful, Issei promised. Though part of him, the increasingly vocal dragon aspect, thrilled at the opportunity to learn from such a powerful entity. Will you be observing the training? From a respectful distance, Azazel confirmed. Dragon instructional methods tend to be intense. Interference would be considered an insult. I'll monitor your circuit remotely, Akeno added, indicating her tablet. If the energies become dangerously unbalanced, I can intervene with a stabilizing spell. Issei nodded, oddly comforted by their concern yet increasingly eager to begin. The dragon essence pulsed more strongly now, anticipating connection to its heritage. 30 minutes, he repeated. I should prepare. The central courtyard of Azazel's facility formed a perfect circle of polished stone, inlaid with metals that caught the morning light like liquid fire. Ancient symbols were etched into the perimeter, wards and workings so complex they made Issei's eyes hurt to follow their patterns. At the cardinal points stood 4 pillars of different materials, black marble veined with red, white alabaster glowing with inner light, bronze that hummed with subtle vibration, and jade so dark it appeared almost black. Tiamat waited at the center, still in her human form but somehow more imposing in the open space. She had removed her outer garments, wearing only a simple sleeveless shift tee. Hat revealed more of the scale-like reflections on her skin. In the direct sunlight, the effect was subtle but unmistakable. Her human appearance was a conscious manifestation, not her true form. You're punctual, she observed as Issei approached. Good. Dragons value time differently than shorter-lived races, but we respect those who honor agreements precisely. Issei stopped several paces away, instinctively maintaining distance. I'm ready to begin. Are you? Tiamat tilted her head slightly, studying him. What do you think draconic training involves, hybrid? I don't know, Issei admitted. Combat techniques, magical abilities, understanding draconic culture. A slight smile curved her lips. All relevant, eventually, but fundamentally misguided. Dragons are not defined by what they do, but by what they are. She gestured to the courtyard around them. This space has been prepared for primordial recognition. The first step in awakening your dragon blood fully. Recognition of what? Your true nature, she replied simply. Strip to the waist and sit at the center of the circle. Issei hesitated only briefly before complying. As he removed his shirt, the magical cirque UIT on his chest became visible, an intricate geometric pattern glowing with tricolored energy that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He sat cross-legged at the center of the courtyard, feeling the stone warm beneath him. Tiamat circled him slowly, her movements predatory yet graceful. The circuit is elegant, she acknowledged. The half-fallen has skill beyond her years. But it remains an art. Official construct. A bandage on a wound that requires healing, not covering. She knelt behind him, close enough that he could feel her presence like heat against his back. Dragons heal differently than other beings. We do not recover through rest or medicine, but through reconnection to our essential nature. Her voice dropped lower, taking on that subtle rumble that hinted at her true form. Close your eyes. Focus on your breath. Issei obeyed, aware of her movement as she circled to face him. Her fingers touched his chest, tracing the circuit with precise pressure. Each point she touched flared with heat, the draconic essence responding to her presence. Your breath is not merely air, she instructed. It is fire, dormant and waiting. Feel it in your lungs, the potential for flame. To his surprise, Issei could sense exactly what she described, a core of heat within his chest that expanded with each inhalation. The sensation should have been frightening, but instead felt natural, right? Dragons do not create fire. Tiamat continued, her voice taking on a hypnotic quality. We are fire, given form and consciousness. The flame is not a tool we use, but an expression of our essential being. As she spoke, Issei felt the heat intensifying, spreading from his lungs through his veins. The crimson aspect of his power, the dragon essence, pulsed more strongly within the circuit, causing the other energies to recede slightly. Now, Tiamat commanded, release a single breath, not as air, but as your true nature. Issei exhaled slowly. To his astonishment, what emerged was no chi breath but a small jet of crimson flame that dissipated harmlessly in the air between them. The sensation was exhilarating, not the strain of using an ability, but the relief of expressing something fundamental. Good, Tiamat approved. Again, deeper this time. Don't create fire, become it. His second attempt produced a stronger flame, sustained for several seconds before fading. The dragon essence surged powerfully, threatening to overwhelm the careful balance Akeno had established. Careful, came Akeno's voice from the edge of the courtyard. The circuit is destabilizing. Tiamat didn't turn or acknowledge the interruption. Ignore the artificial constraints. They hinder true expression. They're keeping him alive, Akeno countered, stepping closer. The tablet in her hands displayed warning indicators. His energies need to remain balanced. Balance through suppression is false harmony, Tiamat replied dismissively. True balance comes through full expression of each aspect, not their mutual constraint. Issei opened his eyes, aware of tension building between the two women. The dragon essence pulsed eagerly, urging him toward Tiamat's approach, while his more rational mind recognized the wisdom in Akeno's caution. Perhaps, he suggested carefully, there's a middle path. Learning to express the dragon aspect fully, but within sustainable boundaries. Both women looked at him, Tiamat with surprise, Akeno with thoughtful consideration. An interesting perspective, Tiamat acknowledged after a moment. Neither reckless abandon nor fearful restraint. She studied him with newfound interest. Perhaps your unique nature offers insights even ancient dragons might consider. She rose fluidly to her feet, extending a hand to help Issei up. We will approach this differently. Instead of awakening power regardless of consequence, we will explore control and expression simultaneously. Akeno nodded approvingly. A more sustainable approach. The circuit can accommodate gradual expansion of each essence, provided they remain in relative balance. Then we begin again, Tiamat decided. This time with awareness of both expression and limitation. What full load was unlike any training Issei could have imagined. Rather than physical techniques or magical formulas, Tiamat guided him through what she called essential recognition, a process of connecting consciously to the draconic aspect of his nature. They began with breath, controlling and directing the internal flame that dragons carried within. Each exhale became an exercise in precision, RMING ordinary breath into carefully controlled manifestations of fire. Not merely external flames, but expressions of his internal energy made visible. The fire is not separate from you, Tiamat explained as Issei practiced. It is not a weapon you wield, but a language you speak. Each variation in temperature, color, intensity, all express different aspects of draconic communication. Issei concentrated, producing a small flame that danced above his palm. With conscious effort, he shifted its color from crimson to blue, then gold, each transition requiring subtle changes in his internal energy. Remarkable adaptation, Tiamat observed. Most younglings require months to achieve such control. Is it because of my mixed heritage? Issei asked, allowing the flame to dissipate. Partially, she acknowledged. The presence of opposing energies requires greater conscious control. But there is something else, a natural affinity that suggests powerful draconic lineage. Her slitted eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Who were your parents, I wonder? I wish I knew, Issei replied honestly. Tiamat studied him for another moment before continuing the lesson. From breath control, they progressed to physical manifestations, calling forth aspects of draconic form without complete transformation. Visualization is key, she instructed. Dragons exist simultaneously in multiple states, physical and energetic. Our forms are expressions of will as much as biology. Under her guidance, Issei learned to manifest scales along his forearms, crimson plates that emerged from his skin-like armor before receding. The process was disconcerting at first, but quickly became intuitive as he connected more deeply with the dragon essence. The scales are not merely protection, Tiamat explained, demonstrating by manifesting azure scales along her own arm. They are sensory organs, magical conduits, expressions of identity. Each dragon's scale pattern is unique, a signature as distinctive as a human fingerprint. But carrying far more information. Throughout the morning, Akeno observed from the periphery, monitoring the magical circuit and occasionally offering suggestions for maintaining balance. To Issei's surprise, Tiamat accepted these interventions with reasonable grace, perhaps recognizing the practical necessity of keeping his energies stable. By midday, Issei could manifest limited draconic features at will, scales, enhanced senses, even small claws that extended from his fingertips before retracting. Each manifestation came more naturally than the last, as if his body remembered abilities long dormant. Enough physical training for now, Tiamat announced as the sun reached its zenith. The body adapts quickly. The mind requires different instruction. She led him to the jade pillar at the northern point of the courtyard. Up close, Issei could see that what appeared to be stone was actually crystallized energy, ancient power solidified into physical form. Place your hand upon the pillar, Tiamat instructed. It contains memories of the dragon realm, impressions gathered over millennia. Through it, you can experience aspects of draconic existence without physical travel. Issei hesitated briefly before placing his palm against the crystal surface. Immediately, his consciousness expanded beyond his body. Images, sensations, and knowledge flooded his mind. Not as disjointed fragments like his dreams, but as coherent experiences he could navigate intentionally. He soared above vast mountain ranges under crimson skies, feeling the exhilaration of flight. Through storm clouds charged with primal energy, he witnessed gatherings of ancient dragons, their communication a complex symphony of flame, telepathy, and physical gesture. He experienced the territorial imperative, the fierce protection of domain that defined much of draconic social structure. Most significantly, he began to understand the draconic perspective on existence, the long view that came with potential immortality. The value placed on individual strength and autonomy, the complex honor codes that governed interaction between beings of such devastating power. When he finally withdrew his consciousness from the pillar, Issei found Tiamat watching him with open curiosity. "What did you perceive?" she asked. "Everything," he breathed, still processing the deluge of information. "Flight, communication, territory, social structures." He paused, struggling to articulate the most profound aspect. The perspective, seeing time differently, valuing different things than humans or other beings. The essence of Dragonkind, Tiamat confirmed. Not merely our abilities or appearances, but our fundamental nature. Did it resonate with you? Issei considered carefully. Parts of it felt natural, like remembering rather than learning. The freedom of flight, the joy in expressing power openly, the directness of purpose. But other aspects seemed, he searched for the right word. Alien, she suggested. Foreign, he corrected. Not wrong, just, not entirely me. The territorial isolation, the hierarchical combat for dominance, the suspicion of cooperative ventures. Tiamat nodded slowly, as if he'd confirmed something she suspected. You are dragon, but not only dragon. The other aspects of your nature influence your perspective, creating something neither wholly draconic nor wholly other. Is that a problem? It is what it is, she replied simply. Neither good nor bad intrinsically, merely unprecedented. Dragons value uniqueness, even while demanding adherence to certain fundamental principles. Quote, which principles? Strength, autonomy, honor, truth. She enumerated them with solemn emphasis. A dragon may forgive many transgressions, but weakness, subservience, dishonor, and deception are seldom among them. The conversation was interrupted by Akeno's approach. I apologize for the interruption, but the circuit requires adjustment. The dragon Zens has expanded significantly during training. Tiamat studied the magical construction visible on Issei's chest. The circuit constrains more than protects now. It should be modified to accommodate growth rather than restricting it. That was my assessment as well, Akeno agreed, surprising both Issei and Tiamat with her concurrence. I've prepared a reconfiguration that allows greater expression while maintaining essential balance. She gestured for Issei to sit. As he complied, she knelt before him, hands moving in precise gestures above the glowing circuit. The patterns shifted and expanded under her magical direction, geometric forms evolving into more organic configurations that better accommodated his developing energies. Elegant work, Tiamat acknowledged, observing the process with evident interest. You understand draconic energy better than most non-dragons. I've studied cross-factional magical integration extensively, Akeno replied without looking up from her work. Dragon magic forms the foundation for many hybrid systems due to its fundamental connection to natural law. Academic knowledge is not the same as intuitive understanding, Tiamat observed. Your work shows both. Akeno completed the reconfiguration, the circuit settling into its new pattern with a pulse of harmonic energy. There, she said with evident satisfaction. This should accommodate continued growth while maintaining essential stability. Issei examined the modified circuit, sensing the difference immediately. The dragon essence flowed more freely now, no longer constrained but rather channeled, its power available without overwhelming the other aspects of his nature. Thank you, he said sincerely. It feels right, balanced but not restricted. A subtle smile curved Akeno's lips. Balance doesn't require suppression, merely harmony. The statement seemed directed as much at Tiamat as at Issei. The Dragon Queen inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the point. Well stated. Perhaps there is wisdom in collaboration after all. The moment of accord was interrupted by Azazel's arrival. The fallen angel approached with his characteristic casual confidence, though Issei noticed a tension in his expression that hadn't been present earlier. Productive morning, he inquired lightly, though his eyes moved quickly between the three of them, assessing. The hybrid progresses rapidly, Tiamat stated. His adaptation to draconic abilities exceeds expectation. Excellent news, Azazel replied. Unfortunately, our schedule may need adjustment. We have visitors approaching the boundary zone. Quote, Issei tensed immediately. More faction representatives. Not exactly, Azazel hedged. More accurately described as opportunists. Word of your existence has spread beyond official channels. It seems. Dragon hunters, Tiamat growled, the rumble in her voice more pronounced with anger. Her human appearance flickered momentarily, scales becoming more visible across her skin. Parasites who seek power through theft rather than earning it properly. Precisely, Azazel confirmed. A small group, but well equipped. They've established position at the western boundary, the dragon territory approach. How would they even know about me? Issei asked. Information has value, Akeno explained grimly. And the supernatural world has its own black markets and information brokers. News of a unique hybrid would command extraordinary prices. They seek your blood, Tiamat stated bluntly. Dragon essence is the most accessible of your three natures from an extraction perspective. Dragon blood, consumed or utilized in rituals, can temporarily grant significant power to those desperate enough to attempt such methods. Issei felt cold despite the midday heat. What do we do? The facility's defenses should. Azazel began, but Tiamat cut him off with a dismissive gesture. Defenses are passive, she declared. This incursion requires active response. Dragon hunters represent a direct challenge. Ignoring such provocation invites further aggression. You're suggesting we confront them directly? Akeno asked, concern evident in her tone. I am suggesting the hybrid requires practical application of his morning's training, Tiamat clarified. Academic knowledge means nothing without implementation under pressure. Azazel frowned thoughtfully. The boundary zone does limit their options. They can't use their more destructive equipment without violating neutrality protocols. You can't be seriously considering this, Akeno protested. Issei has barely begun to understand his abilities, let alone master them sufficiently for combat. I agree with Akeno, Issei said. I'm not ready to face experienced hunters. Tiamat fixed him with an uncompromising stare. Readiness is rarely granted before necessity demands action. Dragons learn through confrontation as much as instruction. There's a difference between challenging training and throwing him into potentially lethal combat, Akeno argued. Perhaps a compromise, Azazel suggested smoothly. We assess the threat directly but maintain option to withdraw if the situation exceeds current capabilities. A controlled confrontation rather than all-out battle. Issei considered this, feeling the dragon essence within him responding to the situation with increasing eagerness. The prospect of confrontation awakened something primal, not bloodlust exactly, but a desire to test newfound abilities against real opposition. I should at least see what we're facing, he decided. We can determine the appropriate response once we have better information. Tiamat nodded approvingly. A balanced approach, neither reckless engagement nor cowering behind defenses. The dragon hunters have established position near the western observation point, Azazel informed them. We can approach under concealment to assess their numbers and capabilities before determining further action. I'm coming as well, Akeno stated firmly. The circuit may require adjustment under stress conditions. No one argued with her declaration, recognizing the practical necessity of her presence. They approached the western boundary through dense forest, moving silently beneath ancient trees that pulsed with subtle draconic energy. The dragon realm's influence was strongest here. The very air charged with primal power that resonated with Issei's draconic essence. Azazel led the way, his fallen angel's senses allowing him to navigate the complex terrain effortlessly. Tiamat followed, her movements fluid and predatory, occasionally pausing to scent the air like the apex hunter she truly was. Akeno and Issei brought up the rear, the half-fallen angel maintaining a subtle concealment spell that masked their supernatural signatures. How many hunters do you estimate? Issei asked quietly as they moved deeper into the forest. 6, possibly 7, Azazel replied without turning. A typical extraction team, specialists rather than common mercenaries. Well equipped but limited in their options within the boundary zone. What does that mean exactly? The boundary zone limitations. Ancient treaties established these convergence points as neutral territory, Akeno explained softly. Certain types of weapons and magic are prohibited, particularly those that might damage the dimensional boundaries between realms. Violations bring immediate response from all three factions. So they can't use their most destructive options, Issei clarified. Correct, but that doesn't make them harmless. Azazel cautioned. Dragon hunters are adaptable. They'll have equipment specifically designed to operate within boundary restrictions. Tiamat made a contemptuous sound. Recites rely on tools because they lack inherent strength. Without their specialized equipment, they are nothing. They continued in silence until reaching a ridge overlooking a small clearing. Azazel gestured for them to halt, then pointed toward the clearing below. 7 figures moved with disciplined precision, establishing what appeared to be a ritual space. They wore specialized armor, matte black with circuit-like patterns that occasionally pulsed with suppressed energy. Each carried different equipment, suggesting specialized roles within the team. Standard extraction configuration, Azazel observed quietly. Ritual specialist at center, barrier technicians at the perimeter, combat specialists for protection. They're preparing to draw you out rather than hunting actively. How? Issei asked. The ritual creates a resonance field tuned to draconic energy, Tiamat explained, her voice thick with disgust. It causes discomfort to any dragon within range, eventually becoming painful enough to force manifestation of draconic power as a defensive response. Which they then extract, Akeno concluded grimly. Precisely, Azazel confirmed. The process isn't immediately fatal, but leaves the victim severely weakened and vulnerable to complete exsanguination. Issei watched the methodical preparation below, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Fear was present but surprisingly muted compared to the rising indignation, not merely at being targeted, but at the fundamental wrongness of such methods. They hunt what they don't understand, he said quietly. Take what they haven't earned. Tiamat glanced at him sharply, hearing her own philosophy echoed in his words. Yes, she agreed. That is the fundamental offense of their kind. We should return to the facility, Akeno suggested. Alert the faction representatives about boundary violation. Official response would take hours, Azazel pointed out. By then, the ritual will be active. We can't just attack them, Akeno countered. That's exactly what they want. Direct engagement with Issei. Not attack, Issei said slowly, an idea forming. Disrupt. He turned to Tiamat. The draconic manifestation. Issei learned today. Could they be perceived as coming from different sources? The Dragon Queen's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. With sufficient control, yes. Draconic energy can be projected beyond the physical body, creating impressions of presence where none exists. So we could make them think they're surrounded by multiple dragons, Issei suggested. Disrupt their formation without direct confrontation. Azazel smiled slowly. Psychological warfare rather than direct engagement. I like it. It would require precise control, Tiamat cautioned. More than you've demonstrated thus far. Quote, I can augment his projections with illusion magic, Akeno offered. Create visual confirmation of the energy signatures. A cooperative approach, Azazel approved. Practical application of your training while minimizing direct risk. Tiamat considered for a moment before nodding. Acceptable. The parasites deserve fear before destruction. They quickly developed a strategy. Issei would project Chi draconic energy in patterns suggesting multiple dragons circling the hunter's position. Akeno would enhance these projections with visual and auditory illusions. Azazel would monitor for any sign the hunters had detected the deception. While Tiamat, somewhat reluctantly, agreed to remain in reserve, intervening only if absolutely necessary. Remember, Azazel cautioned as they moved into position, the goal is disruption, not engagement. If they break formation and retreat, we let them go. And if they don't, Issei asked, then we reassess, the fallen angel replied pragmatically. Darkness gathered as evening approached, providing natural cover for their operation. From his position among ancient trees at the clearing's edge, Issei concentrated on the techniques Tiamat had taught him earlier, not merely manifesting draconic energy, but projecting it beyond his physical form. The dragon essence responded eagerly, crimson power flowing through the modified circuit and extending outward in carefully controlled streams. He directed these projections in a circular pattern around the hunters' ritual site, varying their intensity to suggest different sizes and strengths of draconic presence. Beside him, Akeno worked her own magic with elegant precision. Her hands wove complex patterns as she transmuted his energy projections into convincing sensory illusions, shadowy draconic forms moving among the trees. The sound of massive wings disturbing the canopy, occasional gleams of scales catching the fading light. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The hunters froze in their preparations, hands moving to weapons as they scanned the surrounding forest. Their body language shifted from methodical confidence to wary tension. Perimeter breach, called one hunter. Her voice distorted through her helmet's communication system. Multiple signatures detected. Impossible, replied another, clearly the leader based on his positioning. Intelligence confirmed only one draconic entity in this sector. Sensors don't lie, the first hunter insisted. I'm reading at least 5 distinct signatures. No, 6, they're circling our position. Issei concentrated harder, adding subtle variations to his projections. Different flavors of draconic energy suggesting distinct individuals rather than mere reflections of his own power. The effort strained his newly awakened abilities. But the circuit Akeno had modified earlier distributed the load effectively, preventing dangerous imbalance. They're testing our perimeter, the leader decided. Standard intimidation tactics. Maintain formation and accelerate ritual preparation. If we can activate the resonance field, it will force manifestation regardless of their numbers. The hunters resumed their work with increased urgency. Though their previously fluid coordination now showed signs of strain. Nervous glances toward the forest interrupted precise movements. Equipment was deployed hastily rather than methodically. They're adapting, Azazel observed from his concealed position nearby. Time to escalate. Following the predetermined strategy, Issei shifted his approach. Rather than suggesting dragons circling at a distance, he created the impression of multiple entities moving gradually closer, pressure building from all directions simultaneously. Akeno enhanced these projections masterfully, adding the sound of massive bodies moving through underbrush, the crack of trees being displaced, the distinctive rumble of draconic vocalization vibrating at frequencies humans felt more than heard. Hunter's formation began to fragment as individual discipline wavered under perceived threat. Maintain positions. The leader ordered sharply. Complete the ritual circle. They won't attack direct. Too much risk of faction response within the boundary zone. Sir, These readings aren't consistent with normal draconic behavior, reported one hunter, monitoring equipment that pulsed with analytical data. The approach pattern is too coordinated, too strategic. The leader hesitated, uncertainty finally penetrating his professional facade. Explain. Dragons are territorial, the technician elaborated. They don't hunt in packs. This movement pattern suggests coordinated action, almost military precision. Dragon kings, another hunter suggested, fear evident despite the voice distortion. If they've taken interest in the hybrid. The implication hung in the air, unfinished but understood by all present. Dragon kings represented power beyond most hunters' ability to confront, even with specialized equipment. The team's cohesion fractured further. 2 hunters at the perimeter began slowly backing toward their equipment cache, clearly preparing for potential retreat. Hold positions, the leader commanded, but the authority in his voice had diminished. Complete the ritual. We've invested too much to abandon the operation now. Issei sensed the pivotal moment had arrived. Following Tiamat's earlier instructions, he gathered draconic energy into a concentrated form, then released it in a precisely controlled burst, a dragon's challenge roar transmitted through pure energy rather than physical sound. The projection rolled across the clearing like thunder, causing the very air to vibrate with its power. Simultaneously, Akeno manifested the visual component, a Ma. SSIVE draconic silhouette briefly illuminated against the darkening sky, wings outstretched in unmistakable threat display. The effect was devastating. 3 hunters immediately broke formation, retreating toward their equipment. The ritual specialist abandoned his partially completed circle, protective instincts overriding professional commitment. Only the leader and 2 others maintained position, though their body language betrayed increasing desperation. It's working, Akeno whispered, maintaining her illusions with unwavering focus. Time for the final push, Azazel agreed. Issei prepared for one last projection, the most demanding yet. Gathering the dragon essence into precise configuration, he created the impression of imminent attack, the unmistakable energy pattern that preceded a dragon's breath weapon. The projection manifested as building pressure in the air itself, the distinctive preliminary surge that experienced hunters would recognize from deadly experience. Akeno enhanced the effect with visual cues, the forest around the clearing beginning to illuminate with approaching fire not yet visible but imminently threatening. Abort, the leader finally commanded. Tactical withdrawal. Secure essential equipment only. The hunters abandoned their ritual site with practiced efficiency despite their evident fear, grabbing only critical components before retreating toward the boundary edge. Their coordinated withdrawal suggested extensive training, even in defeat. They're retreating, Azazel confirmed. Impressive performance, both of you. Issei released the projections with a sigh of relief, feeling the drain of extended energy manipulation. The dragon essence receded to more sustainable levels, though it pulsed with satisfaction at the successful application of its power. We should ensure they leave the boundary zone entirely, Akeno suggested, dispelling her illusions. Agreed, Azazel replied. I'll track them to the perimeter. He vanished into the darkening forest. Moving with supernatural speed, Issei leaned against a tree, suddenly aware of the exertion required by such precise control. That was more difficult than I expected, he admitted. You performed remarkably well for your first practical application, Akeno assured him, checking the circuit with professional attention. The energy flow remained stable throughout, even under significant demand. Indeed, came Tiamat's voice as she emerged from the shadows. Your control exceeded expectation, particularly the variations in projection character. Most younglings can only project reflections of their own signature, not simulated distinctions. It felt natural, Issei explained, struggling to articulate the sensation. Like speaking in different tones rather than different languages. Tiamat nodded thoughtfully. A apt description. The essence of draconic communication. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden disturbance, a shockwave of energy that rippled through the clearing. Followed by the distinctive sound of combat. Azazel's voice called out in warning, though his words were lost in the chaos of sudden movement. 3 hunters burst back into the clearing. Their retreat apparently reversed. They moved with desperate purpose, heading directly toward Issei's position with weapons drawn. They detected the deception, Tiamat snarled, Scales rippling across her skin as her human disguise began to slip. Stay behind me, Akeno ordered Issei, violet energy crackling around her hands as she prepared defensive spells. But the dragon Sense within Issei surged in response to direct threat, overwhelming caution with primal imperative. Before conscious thought could intervene, he stepped forward, draconic power manifesting not as projected energy but as physical transformation. Scales erupted across his forearms and chest, crimson plates interlocking in natural armor. His senses sharpened dramatically, the world suddenly render in enhanced clarity, heat signatures visible through the gathering darkness, the hunters, specialized equipment resonating with artificial energies his draconic perception identified as hostile. Target confirmed. One hunter transmitted. Primary manifestation in progress. Extraction protocols activated. They deployed specialized weapons, devices that generated fields of constraining energy rather than conventional damage. Designed to incapacitate without killing their valuable target. The first energy net launched toward Issei, expanding in flight to encompass his position. Without conscious planning, he responded with instinctive precision, a controlled burst of flame that intercepted the net mid-flight, disrupting its energy matrix and causing it to collapse harmlessly. The second hunter fired a different weapon, a projectile that split into multiple darts trailing suppression fields designed to inhibit draconic energy expression. Issei sidestepped with supernatural speed, the draconic aspect enhancing his physical capabilities beyond human limitation. Remarkable reaction time, the hunter observed clinically, adjusting settings on his weapon. Increasing suppression factor. The third hunter circled to flank, deploying what appeared to be a ritual focus, a crystalline device that emitted resonant frequencies specifically calibrated to draconic physiology. The effect was immediate and disorienting, the dragon essence within Issei fluctuating erratically, his partial transformation threatening to collapse. Akeno recognized the device immediately. Resonance disruptor, she warned, sending a bolt of violet lightning toward the hunter. The attack forced him into evasive movement, temporarily disrupting the disruptor's effect. Tiamat snarled, her human form shimmering as rage threatened her control. Enough observation. These parasites require elimination. Azure scales now covered her visible skin, her eyes fully transformed to draconic slits that glowed with ancient power. No, Issei managed, fighting through the disorientation. This is my fight. The declaration surprised everyone, including himself. Yet he recognized its truth immediately. This confrontation represented more than physical threat, it was a fundamental challenge to his emerging identity, his right to exist as himself rather than a resource for others to exploit. The dragon essence responded to this realization, surging not with mere aggression but with purposeful power. The magical circuit Akeno had modified earlier distributed the energy perfectly, allowing controlled expression without dangerous imbalance. Issei faced the hunters directly, scales now covering most of his upper body. "I am not your prey," he stated, his voice carrying the subtle rumble that marked draconic speech. "Leave now, or discover exactly what you're facing." The hunters hesitated momentarily, their sensors undoubtedly registering the controlled power gathering around Issei's form. But professional determination overrode caution. "Primary target shows unique energy configuration," reported one hunter. "Potential value exceeds initial estimates. Maximum extraction authorized." All three activated their equipment simultaneously, nets, darts, and the resonance disruptor combining in coordinated assault designed to overwhelm through multiple vectors. Issei responded with the precise control he'd developed throughout the day, but applied to direct confrontation rather than deception. He met each attack with calculated counter, flame to disrupt the nets, physical evasion against the darts, and most impressively, a projected energy shield against the resonance disruptor. The dragon essence flowed through paths Tiamat had helped him establish during training, responding to his will with increasing precision. Not raw power unleashed blindly, but controlled application directed by conscious intent. The hunters adjusted quickly, their professional experience evident in their tactical adaptation. They spread further apart, forcing Issei to divide his attention across multiple threats. Their equipment recalibrated based on observed responses, seeking vulnerability in his defensive patterns. Impressive adaptation, the lead hunter acknowledged, but ultimately futile. "You lack experience applying these abilities in combat situations." "Perhaps," Issei agreed, surprising Why calm despite the escalating confrontation. "But I'm learning quickly. As if to demonstrate this claim, he executed a combination Tiamat had merely described theoretically during their training, simultaneous manipulation of different draconic abilities. He projected flame in one direction while manifesting enhanced physical capability in another, all while maintaining the energy shield against the resonance disruptor. The coordinated application caught the hunters off guard, disrupting their carefully planned approach. One stumbled backward as controlled fire consumed his specialized netting launcher. Another found her dart system suddenly grappling with a target moving faster than its tracking parameters could accommodate. Only the resonance disruptor continued functioning effectively, its operator adjusting frequencies to match Issei's evolving manifestation. The device's effect intensified, creating genuine discomfort as it interfered with the dragon essence's expression. Recognizing the primary threat, Issei focused his attention on the disruptor. Rather than continuing purely defensive measures, he recalled Tiamat's instruction about draconic energy as communication rather than mere power. With careful precision, he projected a specific energy pattern toward the device, not attacking it directly, but communicating with its crystalline matrix in the fundamental language of resonance. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The disruptor's emissions fluctuated wildly before the crystal at its core fractured with a high-pitched tone, rendering the device useless. "Impossible," its operator exclaimed. He harmonized with the disruption matrix. Without their coordinated suppression strategy, the hunters' tactical advantage evaporated rapidly. They retreated toward the forest edge, maintaining token resistance while clearly preparing for full withdrawal. Issei advanced steadily, maintaining pressure without overcommitting. The dragon essence flowed smoothly through the circuit, powerful but controlled, responding to his will with increasing precision. "This isn't over," the lead hunter warned as they reached the tree line. "You've revealed capabilities beyond initial assessment. That only increases your value." "A common misunderstanding," Issei replied, allowing the scales to recede from his hands while maintaining the protective covering across his torso. "Value isn't determined by what can be taken from someone, but by what they choose to give." The philosophical response clearly wasn't what the hunter expected. He hesitated momentarily or triggering a final device, a sphere that erupted into blinding light and disorienting sound, providing cover for their final retreat. When the sensory disruption cleared, the hunters had vanished into the forest. Azazel emerged from the trees moments later, looking somewhat disheveled. "Clever bastards," he commented. "Had a second team lying in reserve. I was delayed dealing with them." He surveyed the clearing with evident interest. "Though it appears you managed admirably without assistance." Tiamat approached Issei, her human appearance restored though her eyes retained their draconic aspect. "You fought well," she acknowledged. "Controlled application rather than mere power. A mature approach few younglings demonstrate naturally." "The circuit maintained stability throughout," Akino added, checking the magical construct with evident satisfaction. "Even during direct combat application." Issei took a deep breath, allowing the remaining draconic manifestations to recede. The scales disappeared beneath his skin, though the dragon essence remained more prominent than before the confrontation, as if awakened more fully by practical application. "They'll return with better preparation," he noted, recalling the lead hunter's parting words. "Undoubtedly," Azazel agreed. "Dragon hunters are nothing if not persistent. But they'll approach more cautiously next time, with greater respect for your capabilities." "Which buys time for continued development," Akino concluded. "And demonstrates the necessity of comprehensive training," Tiamat added. "Academic understanding provides foundation, but practical application under pressure reveals true capability." Issei nodded thoughtfully, absorbing the lesson along with the experience. The confrontation had taught him more. Even mere combat application, it had revealed something fundamental about his emerging identity and the complex world he now inhabited. "I think I understand something important about being dragon," he said after a moment's reflection. "It's not just about power or ability, but about sovereignty. The right to determine one's own nature and path." Tiamat's expression shifted slightly, approval mingled with surprise at his insight. "Yes," she confirmed, "that is the fundamental essence of Dragonkind, beyond all physical characteristics or abilities. Self-determination above all else." A.P. Philosophy not entirely contrary to devilish perspective, Azazel observed with amusement. "Though expressed quite differently, or angelic principle, properly understood," Akino added thoughtfully. The fundamental right to choose one's path is recognized across multiple traditions, albeit with different emphasis. Perhaps my impossible nature isn't so contradictory after all, Issei suggested. Maybe these aspects share more fundamental compatibility than surface opposition. The observation created momentary silence as each considered its implications. Finally, Tiamat spoke, her tone carrying unusual thoughtfulness for a being typically direct and absolute in expression. An interesting perspective, she acknowledged. One worthy of further exploration. They returned to the facility as true darkness settled across the triumvirate convergence. The three realms displayed their distinctive nighttime aspects, heaven's territories illuminated by ethereal silver light, the underworld pulsing with crimson fire, and the dragon realm alive with bioluminescent life that transformed the ancient forest into a sea of living light. Issei stood on his balcony once more, watching the interplay of these different realities while absorbing the day's experiences. The confrontation with the dragon hunters had changed something fundamental in his perspective, not merely demonstrative practical application of his abilities, but connecting him more deeply to his draconic heritage. A soft knock at the door preceded Akino's entry. She carried a tray with steaming tea and what appeared to be medical supplies. For the aftermath, she explained, setting the tray on a small table. First manifestation typically leaves residual strain, even when controlled successfully. Issei realized she was right. Now that the immediate situation had passed, he became aware of deep muscle aches and a persistent burning sensation along his spine, physical consequences of draconic transformation. "Thank you," he said sincerely, accepting the tea she offered. The liquid carried an unusual aroma, herbal with undertones of something more exotic. "What is this?" "Dragon's breath tea," she replied with a small smile. Despite the dramatic name, it's simply an herbal blend with mild regenerative properties. Helps stabilize transformation aftereffects. He sipped carefully, finding the tea pleasant though distinctly foreign, slightly sweet with a smoky finish that lingered on the palate. Almost immediately, the burning sensation along his spine began to subside. "Effective," he noted appreciatively. "I've had some experience with transformation strain," Akino replied, her tone suggesting personal knowledge rather than merely academic understanding. Issei studied her more carefully, noting subtle indicators of her mixed heritage, barely perceptible unless one knew to look for them. "Your fallen angel aspect," she nodded slightly, expression becoming more guarded. "It manifested during adolescence, as such things typically do, without proper guidance or understanding. That must have been difficult," Issei said quietly, recognizing the pain beneath her clinical demeanor. It was. She busied herself preparing a salve from the medical supplies, avoiding eye contact. "Remove your shirt." The scale manifestation likely left inflammation along the dermal boundaries. Issei complied, revealing the magical circuit still glowing steadily on his chest. As Akino had predicted, angry red marks traced the paths where scales had emerged and receded across his skin, not wounds exactly, but irritated boundaries between human and dragon physiology. She applied the salve with professional efficiency, her touch clinical yet somehow comforting. The ointment cooled immediately upon contact, soothing the inflamed areas. The circuit performed exceptionally well during combat, she noted, examining the magical construct as she worked. No destabilization despite significant energy fluctuations. "Your control was impressive. Your modifications made that possible," Issei pointed out. "Without the circuit, I doubt I could have maintained balance during direct conflict." "The circuit merely provides structure," she corrected. "Your conscious direction determined its effectiveness. Most beings with newly awakened abilities struggle for basic control, let alone complex application under pressure." "Do you think that's because of my mixed nature?" he asked, having to reconcile opposing forces from the beginning. Akino considered this thoughtfully as she continued applying the salve. "Partially. Perhaps. Necessity often accelerates development. But there's something else." She hesitated, as if uncertain whether to continue. "What?" "Your approach is unusual," she finally said. "Most beings with multiple supernatural aspects try to compartmentalize them, using each separately rather than seeking integration. You instinctively move toward harmony rather than separation. Is that significant? Potentially revolutionary," she replied with unexpected intensity. Most hybrid beings suffer constant internal conflict. If your approach proves sustainable. She trailed off, implications hanging unspoken between them. Issei understood nonetheless. His existence challenged fundamental assumptions about supernatural compatibility. If he could achieve genuine integration rather than mere coexistence of opposing forces, the implications extended far beyond his individual case. Your own experience, he ventured carefully, aware of her guarded nature regarding personal matters. With your dual heritage, Akino's hands paused briefly in their work before resuming. As complicated, she finished simply. My angelic and fallen aspects exist in constant tension. Management rather than resolution has been my focus. But if integration were possible, it would change everything, she acknowledged quietly. For many like me, the Admiss, Ion revealed more about her interest in his case than she'd previously expressed. Not merely academic fascination or professional responsibility, but personal investment in the possibilities his unique nature represented. I don't know if what I'm doing will ultimately succeed, Issei said honestly. I'm figuring this out as I go, with more questions than answers. That's how all significant discoveries begin, Akino replied, completing her treatment and stepping back. With questions conventional wisdom cannot answer. She gathered the medical supplies, her clinical demeanor returning. You should rest. Your body needs time to process today's experiences, and tomorrow brings new challenges. The Devil Observer arrives. Yes, Duke Valifor is sending his protege, Lord Amducius. Apparently, your performance against the hunters elevated you to requiring noble attention rather than mere technical assessment. Is that good or bad? Both, most likely, she replied pragmatically. Quote, higher status attention brings both opportunities and complications. Issei nodded, already learning that supernatural politics operated in layers of implication rather than straightforward interaction. Thank you again, he said, for the circuit, the medical attention, and understanding. Something subtle shifted in Akino's expression, a momentary softening of her reserved demeanor. Understanding isn't so difficult when one has walked similar paths, she replied quietly. Rest well, Issei. After she departed, Issei returned to the balcony, sipping the medicinal tea while contemplating the extraordinary events of the day. From theoretical training to practical application, from academic understanding to visceral experience, each step revealing more about his emerging identity. The dragon essence pulsed contentedly within him, no longer asserting dominance but maintaining its stronger presence harmoniously alongside the other aspects of his nature. Today's experiences had connected him more deeply to this part of his heritage, not through mere information, but through lived experience and conscious choice. As he watched the three realms coexist in their impossible convergence, Issei felt something shift within his perspective. Perhaps the seeming contradictions of his nature were not flaws to overcome but opportunities to explore, each aspect offering unique wisdom and capability that, properly integrated, created something greater than their separate contributions. The thought brought unexpected peace as fatigue finally overcame him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, different aspects of his nature to explore, different factions to navigate, different abilities to develop. But today had proven something fundamental. He was more than the sum of his conflicting parts. He was Issei Hyodo, neither solely dragon nor devil nor angel, but something unprecedented yet entirely himself. With that realization providing unexpected clarity, he finally surrendered to well-earned rest. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Heaven's Edge. The summons arrived as dawn painted the convergence in prismatic light. Issei found it on his balcony, a scroll of material so fine it seemed woven from solidified moonlight. It hovered at eye level, pulsing with gentle radiance that neither dimmed nor brightened regardless of surrounding illumination. Curious delivery method, Azazel remarked, materializing behind Issei with characteristic suddenness. The fallen angel wore an immaculate charcoal suit despite the early hour, as if perpetually prepared for unexpected diplomatic engagements. Celestial communication protocols, formal but deliberately archaic, from heaven's representatives, Issei asked, hesitating to touch the floating document. Not exactly. Azazel circled the scroll with analytical interest. Notice the silver-blue tint. Distinctly Asgardian craftsmanship. The angels prefer pure gold or white. Asgardian, as in Norse mythology. Mythology to humans, contemporary politics to us. Azazel plucked the scroll from the air with casual familiarity. The message won't trigger for me. Fallen angels are specifically excluded from Asgardian communications, but I can identify the sender. He examined intricate runes embossed along the edge. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Care to share what's so interesting? Issei prompted when Azazel lapsed into thoughtful silence. This bears Rosweiss's personal seal. Azazel handed the scroll to Issei. Former Valkyrie, top strategist for Odin himself until recent disagreements led to her departure from Asgardian service. She's establishing a neutral academic institution within the boundary zones. The scroll responded to Issei's touch, unfurling with fluid grace. The material felt impossibly smooth yet substantial beneath his fingers. Words appeared on its surface in flowing script that shifted between languages, starting in ancient Norse before transitioning to modern Japanese, apparently adapting to the reader's comprehension. To Issei Hyodo, the Convergent One, he read aloud. Your emergence has created significant ripples across supernatural realms. As founder of the Boundary Academy, I extend formal invitation to discuss potential collaboration. The Academy seeks to transcend traditional factional limitations, an objective your unique nature embodies. A neutral escort awaits at the northern observation point should you accept this invitation. Regards, Rosweiss, Director of Boundary Studies. The message concluded with a complex sigil that pulsed once before settling into the page. Boundary Academy. Issei glanced at Azazel questioningly. A recent initiative, the Fallen Angel explained. Rosweiss is attempting something unprecedented, an educational institutio. And that exists at the convergence of multiple supernatural traditions, teaching integrated approaches rather than isolated factional methodologies. Sounds progressive. Radical would be more accurate, Azazel corrected. Most supernatural factions guard their knowledge jealously, considering cross-traditional education somewhere between heresy and treason. The Academy exists only because multi-PLE minor factions support it while the major powers are too preoccupied with each other to shut it down. Issei reread the invitation thoughtfully. Why would she contact me specifically? Isn't it obvious? Akino's voice joined the conversation as she entered the balcony, carrying her ever-present tablet. Unlike Azazel's formal attire, she wore practical clothing, dark leggings and a violet tunic embroidered with silver sigils that occasionally shimmered with subtle power. You embody what her academy theoretically represents, integration of traditionally opposed supernatural lineages. A living proof of concept. Azazel agreed, and quite timely, given her current challenges. What challenges? Issei asked. Legitimacy, primarily, Akino replied. The Academy remains controversial. Many traditional institutions consider it at best misguided, at worst actively dangerous. The Celestial Observer arrives today, Azazel reminded them. Haniel represents Heaven's most conservative faction. His response to collaboration with a former Valkyrie would be, predictably negative. Issei considered this, weighing diplomatic complications against the opportunity to learn more about his angelic aspect from someone outside traditional celestial hierarchy. The invitation mentions a neutral escort. Who would that be? Likely one of her students, Azazel speculated. The Academy has attracted an eclectic collection of beings with mixed heritages or unconventional approaches to supernatural traditions. Like me, Issei observed. Considerably less unique than you, Akino qualified. But operating in similarly liminal spaces between established categories. The timing is problematic, Azazel noted, with the devil representative already en route and Heaven's observer expected by midday. Yet potentially advantageous, Akino countered. Exploring the angelic aspect independently before Heaven's representative arrives could provide valuable context for those interactions. Issei made his decision. I'll accept the invitation, but return before the observers arrive. That gives us, he checked the time, about 4 hours. Cutting it close, Azazel cautioned. But reasonable, Akino conceded. Already adjusting something on her tablet. I've modified the circuit to accommodate potential angelic manifestation. Your dragon aspect has stabilized sufficient Why to permit exploration of your other lineages without immediate risk of imbalance? I should accompany you, Azazel suggested, though his tone indicated expectation of refusal. The invitation specified neutral escort. Issei reminded him, your presence would complicate matters, given your history with celestial factions. An understatement, Akino murmured with subtle amusement. Azazel conceded with a theatrical sigh. Valid point. Politics before practicality, as always. He tapped the scroll, activating a secondary function. The document folded into an origami bird that hovered expectantly. Your response. I accept the invitation and will arrive at the northern observation point within the hour, Issei stated. The paper bird animated at his words, circling once before darting through the open balcony doors. It accelerated rapidly, becoming a streak of silver light that disappeared toward the northern boundary of the convergence zone. Well then, Azazel said briskly, best prepare yourself. Rossweiss values punctuality above most virtues, a characteristic she shares with most beings of celestial orientation. I'll accompany you to the observation point, Akino decided. The circuit may require adjustment during initial interaction with the Academy's unique magical environment. Issei nodded gratefully, still conscious of his dependence on her expertise despite his growing confidence. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she replied with unexpected gravity. The angelic aspect often proves the most challenging for hybrid beings, particularly those with devilish or draconic elements. Why? Fundamental opposition of principle, she explained. The angelic emphasizes cosmic order and predetermined purpose. The dragon represents primal freedom and self-determination, while the devil embodies ambition and desire-driven choice. Reconciling these perspectives requires, she paused, searching for the right word. Philosophical flexibility, Azazel supplied helpfully. I was going to say, profound integration of seemingly contradictory truths, Akino corrected with a pointed look at the fallen angel, but essentially, yes. Issei considered this as he prepared for the journey. Unlike his draconic training, which had focused on physical manifestation and practical application, exploring his angelic aspect apparently required more conceptual understanding. The thought was both intriguing and somewhat intimidating. What do you know about Rossweiss personally? He asked as they departed the facility. Beyond her professional background, Azazel and Akino exchanged a glance that contained volumes of unspoken communication, the look of immortal beings who shared history beyond human comprehension. Brilliant, Azazel finally said. Strategic genius with particular aptitude for integration of disparate magical systems. Created revolutionary defensive formations during the last supernatural conflict. And personally, Issei pressed. Reserved, Akino offered. Values competence and clarity above social graces. Rarely reveals personal perspectives except through practical actions. Her departure from Asgardian service remains something of a mystery, Azazel added. Official records cite philosophical differences with Odin, but the specific nature of those differences is subject to considerable speculation. Some she questioned traditional hierarchical structures, Akino elaborated. Others believe she discovered uncomfortable truths about Asgard's historical actions. Most likely both, Azazel concluded pragmatically. The important point is that she's operating independently now, without traditional factional constraints. Which makes her potentially valuable as an ally, Issei surmised, or dangerous as an opponent. Azazel smiled approvingly. You're learning supernatural politics quickly. Necessity accelerates education, Issei replied, unconsciously echoing Akino's earlier observation about his power development. They reached the northern boundary of Azazel's property, where the landscape began transitioning toward celestial influence. The change was subtle at first, light behaving differently, colors shifting toward the ultraviolet spectrum, sounds carrying unusual harmonic resonance. As they approached the observation point proper, the transformation became more pronounced. The ground beneath their feet transitioned from ordinary earth to crystalline pathways that chimed softly with each step. Vegetation grew in perfect geometric patterns, their colors unnaturally vivid yet somehow harmonious. The northern convergence, Azazel announced unnecessarily. Heaven's influence predominates here, though filtered through the boundary zone's limitations. Issei felt the angelic aspect of his nature responding to the environment, the golden energy within him brightening and expanding slightly, though still balanced within Akino's circuit. Unlike the dragon essence's fierce awakening, this response felt measured and deliberate, as if evaluating rather than simply reacting. Your angelic aspect shows interesting response patterns, Akino noted, monitoring her tablet. More contemplative than the dragon. More structured than the devil. It feels different, Issei agreed. Less instinctive, more intentional. They reached the observation point, a crystalline gazebo that provided panoramic views of heaven's territories beyond the boundary. From this vantage, Issei could see impossible landscapes of light and geometry, floating islands connected by bridges of pure radiance. Structures that defied conventional physics yet followed their own perfect internal logic, gardens of crystal and living light where winged figures moved with purposeful grace. A solitary figure waited within the gazebo. At first glance, he appeared to be a young man of Scandinavian descent, tall and fair-haired, dressed in what resembled a modernized academic uniform of silver-gray material. Closer inspection revealed subtle indicators of supernatural nature, eyes that shifted color with the changing light, faint runes occasionally visible beneath his skin when he moved. Issei Hyodo, he greeted with formal precision, his accent cultured and faintly antiquated. I am Eagle, academic associate to Director Rossweiss and your escort to Boundary Academy. The director NDS her gratitude for your prompt response. Thank you for waiting, Issei replied, matching the formal tone instinctively. Eagle's attention shifted to Akino, his expression registering recognition. Lady Himahima, your presence was not anticipated in the invitation. I accompany Issei in medical capacity, she explained professionally. His condition requires monitoring during exposure to new supernatural environments. Eagle considered this briefly before nodding. Understandable. The director mentioned his unique energetic configuration. Your expertise in stabilization circuits is well documented. The casual reference to Akino's professional reputation surprised Issei, reminding him how little he still knew about his companion's standing in the supernatural world. Our transport Asian awaits beyond the observation point, Eagle continued, gesturing toward a path that led deeper into the celestial-influenced territory. The Academy exists at a secondary convergence point, a pocket dimension anchored within the boundary zone but distinct from the primary triumvirate. He led them along crystal pathways that chimed harmonically with each step. As they walked, the environment grew increasingly celestial in nature, light behaving according to unfamiliar physics, vegetation crystallizing and refracting illumination rather than merely absorbing it, air carrying harmonics that resonated at frequencies just beyond comfortable human perception. Their destination appeared gradually through rising morning mist, not emerging suddenly but rather as if always present yet previously overlooked. The Boundary Academy occupied what initially appeared to be a floating island, though closer inspection revealed it was actually a massive structure anchored to multiple convergent realities simultaneously. Its architecture defied conventional classification. Elements of Asgardian grandeur melded seamlessly with celestial geometry and subtle influences from countless other supernatural traditions. The overall effect was both harmonious and slightly disorienting, as if viewing multiple architectural styles superimposed perfectly atop one another. Remarkable construction, Akino observed with professional appreciation. True dimensional anchoring rather than merely occupying convergent space. Director Rossweiss's original contribution to boundary theory, Eagle confirmed with evident pride. The Academy exists simultaneously in multiple adjoining realms without fully occupying any single one, creating a truly neutral territory rather than merely shared space, Issei surmised. Understanding the significance immediately. Ingenious. Eagle glanced at him with increased interest. Precisely. You grasp the philosophical implications quickly. My existence depends on similar principles. Issei replied with a slight smile. Convergence rather than segregation. Their approach to the Academy triggered no obvious defensive responses, yet Issei sensed subtle evolutions occurring. Layers of protection that analyzed rather than simply barred. Unlike conventional wards that established rigid boundaries, these defenses seemed to adapt continuously, recognizing and accommodating visitors rather than categorically accepting or rejecting them. The director awaits in the central atrium, Eagle informed them as they reached the main entrance, a grand archway inscribed with runes and symbols from dozens of supernatural traditions. She expressed particular interest in your stabilization circuit, Mr. Hyodo. The interior of the Academy proved even more impressive than its exterior. Corridors shifted subtly as they passed, adjusting to optimal configurations for current occupants. Lighting responded to emotional states as well as physical presence. Most remarkably, different supernatural beings passed through intersecting spaces without apparent conflict, despite representing traditionally opposed factions. Current enrollment includes representatives From 27 distinct supernatural traditions, Eagle explained, noting Issei's interest in the diverse population. All studying integrated approaches rather than isolated methodologies. How long has the Academy existed? Issei asked, fascinated by this practical implementation of principles he was attempting to embody personally. In its current form, approximately 3 years, Eagle replied. Though the director developed the theoretical framework for decades prior during her service to Asgard. The central atrium opened before them, a breathtaking space that appeared simultaneously vast and intimate. Its ceiling captured actual celestial bodies in miniature, constellations from multiple realms rotating in complex patterns. The floor featured an intricate mosaic depicting the convergence of supernatural worlds, constantly shifting to represent current cosmic alignments. At the center of this remarkable space stood a woman whose presence commanded attention despite her deliberate lack of ostentatious display. Rosweiss appeared younger than Issei had expected given her reputation, perhaps in her mid-20s by human standards, though such appearances meant little among supernatural beings. She wore her silver hair in a practical braid that reached her waist, and her attire suggested functional elegance, a modernized variation of traditional Valkyrie armor, adapted for academic rather than martial purposes. Her eyes, a striking shade of blue-gray, conveyed analytical intelligence and barely concealed intensity. Issei Hyodo, she greeted, her voice carrying sub-tle harmonic resonance that identified her celestial associations despite her Asgardian origins. Your acceptance of my invitation demonstrates either remarkable openness or strategic pragmatism. Perhaps both. Director Rosweiss, Issei replied with instinctive formality. Your academy represents principles I find compelling. The opportunity to discuss them seemed worth potential diplomatic complications. A slight smile curved her lips. Direct and honest, refreshing qualities in supernatural politics. Her attention shifted to Akano. Lady Himahima, your presence is unexpected but welcome. Your research on cross-factional energy integration has informed several of our advanced theoretical models. Akano inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the professional recognition. Your Orcon dimensional anchoring similarly revolutionized stabilization circuit design. The opportunity to observe your practical implementation is academically valuable. Rosweiss's gaze returned to Issei, specifically focusing on his chest where the stabilization circuit remained hidden beneath his clothing. Speaking of revolutionary implementations, perhaps we might discuss your unique configuration in more appropriate surroundings. She gestured toward an adjoining chamber, a smaller space designed for focused conversation rather than grand presentations. As they entered, Issei noticed the room adjusting to their presence. Lighting shifting to accommodate different visual perceptions, acoustic properties modulating to optimal parameters for their specific hearing ranges. Responsive environmental adaptation, Akano noted with professional appreciation. More sophisticated than conventional accommodation spells. The environment should serve diverse occupants without requiring them to adapt unnecessarily. Rosweiss replied, the statement carrying philosophical weight beyond its practical application. Please, be seated. The furnishings arranged themselves in response to her words, not through obvious telekinesis but subtle dimensional shifts that positioned everything for optimal comfort and communication. Issei found himself seated across from Rosweiss, with Akano positioned at his right hand. I'll be direct, Rosweiss began once they were settled. Your emergence represents both extraordinary opportunity and potential crisis for the supernatural community. A being embodying dragon, devil, and angel simultaneously challenges fundamental assumptions about cosmic opposition and ontological compatibility. I'm still understanding those implications myself, Issei admitted. Which is precisely why this conversation is necessary, Rosweiss replied. The traditional factions will attempt to interpret your existence according to their established paradigms, seeing only the aspects that confirm their worldviews while dismissing or suppressing elements that contradict them. You're suggesting they'll try to shape me into what they expect rather than accepting what I am, Issei surmised. Inevitably, Rosweiss confirmed, it's already begun with the observational protocols. Each faction representative will emphasize their corresponding aspect of your nature while minimizing others. Which differs from your approach how exactly? Akano asked with subtle challenge. Rosweiss met her gaze directly. The Boundary Academy doesn't seek to shape beings into predetermined categories but rather helps them discover their unique integration of diverse influences. We don't teach celestial or infernal or draconic magic as separate disciplines, but rather explore the underlying principles that connect all supernatural traditions. An admirable philosophy, Issei acknowledged. But why approach me specifically? I've only just begun understanding my own nature. Precisely because you exist at the beginning of your development, Rosweiss explained. Before calcified factional thinking constrains your potential. She leaned forward slightly, intensity breaking through her controlled demeanor. You represent something unprecedented, Issei Hyodo, a convergence that traditional wisdom declared impossible. How you develop could reinforce existing divisions or demonstrate new possibilities for integration. The conversation was interrupted by a subtle shift in the room's ambient energy, a notification system more refined than crude alarms or messengers. Rosweiss frowned slightly, responding to information Issei couldn't perceive. It appears our discussion must temporarily address more immediate concerns, she announced, rising fluidly. A delegation from Heaven's Purification Corps has arrived at the Academy perimeter, demanding audience regarding, and I quote, the abomination that violates fundamental celestial principles. Issei realized, tension immediately building. They tracked me here, not through conventional means, Rosweiss assured him. The Academy's dimensional anchoring prevents standard tracking. More likely, they detected your departure from Azazel's facility and followed the general directional signature. The angelic aspect has been more active since entering celestial-influenced territory, Akino noted. Checking her tablet with concern. It may be broadcasting more prominently than we realized. We should return immediately, Issei decided. This is your territory. I don't want to bring conflict to your academy. An admirable sentiment, Rosweiss acknowledged, but ultimately irrelevant. The Purification Corps doesn't recognize Boundary Academy's neutral status. They would find pretext for intervention regardless of your presence. She straightened her shoulders, subtle shifts in her posture suggesting the military commander beneath the academic director. Besides, how I respond to their demands directly impacts the Academy's perceived legitimacy. Surrendering to factional pressure establishes dangerous precedent. What exactly is Heaven's Purification Corps? Issei asked, sensing danger beyond typical celestial representatives. Zealots, Akino replied tensely. They consider themselves Heaven's immune system, eliminating perceived corruption within and without celestial spheres. They operate semi-autonomously from the main hierarchy. Their philosophical position is rigid even by celestial standards, Rosweiss elaborated. They belie in absolute segregation of supernatural essences, considering any hybrid or integrated being an ontological violation requiring correction. Correction meaning elimination, Issei translated grimly. Or forcible purification, Rosweiss confirmed. Extracting contaminated essences regardless of the subject's survival. The implications settled heavily. Unlike the dragon hunters who sought to exploit Issei's power, these celestial purists objected to his very existence on philosophical grounds, making negotiation virtually impossible. How many? Akino asked practically. 5 purifiers with standard complement. Rosweiss replied, awaiting formal response at the northern approach. Issei made his decision quickly. I'll meet them directly. This confrontation was inevitable. TTER here with preparation than elsewhere by surprise. Both women regarded him with measuring looks, Akino concerned but understanding, Rosweiss analytical yet approving. The Academy's defensive protocols will limit their options, Rosweiss noted, and provide opportunity to demonstrate reasonable response before resorting to conflict. The circuit should stabilize potential angelic manifestation, Akino added, making rapid adjustments on her tablet. Though celestial proximity may trigger involuntary responses, Rosweiss led them through corridors that shifted configuration as they moved, the Academy's architecture adapting to provide optimal pathways toward their destination. They emerged onto a broad terrace overlooking the northern approach, a crystalline bridge that connected the floating academy to the celestial-influenced territories beyond. 5 figures stood at the boundary marker, their appearances identical and unsettling. Each wore armor of gleaming white metal that seemed to capture and intensify ambient light, making them painful to look at directly. Their faces remained concealed behind featureless helmets that reflected viewers' faces back at them with subtle distortions. Most distinctively, They possessed wings unlike typical angels, not feathered appendages but constructs of geometric light that occasionally reconfigured into different symmetrical patterns. Purifiers, Akino whispered tensely. High-order manifestations, not standard operatives. Rossweiss stepped forward, her posture reflecting both academic authority and warrior readiness. Heaven's representatives. She addressed them formally. The Boundary Academy acknowledges your presence. State your purpose according to established protocols. The central figure advanced slightly, its voice emerging with unnatural harmonic resonance that seemed to bypass conventional hearing. Director Rossweiss, former Valkyrie of Asgard, current violator of cosmic segregation principles. We come regarding the abomination harbored within your unauthorized institution. The Boundary Academy operates under multifactional recognition, Rossweiss replied evenly. All visitors receive diplomatic consideration according to established neutral zone provisions. I recognize no authority to demand surrender of any Academy guest. The entity designated Issei Hyodo represents fundamental violation of celestial organizing principles, the Purifier continued, ignoring her legal arguments entirely. Its existence destabilizes necessary boundaries between opposing cosmic forces. Purification is mandated by protocols predating your institution by millennia. Issei stepped forward, standing beside Rossweiss rather than behind her. I am present and capable of speaking for myself, he stated firmly. And I reject your characterization of my existence as violation rather than integration. The Purifiers, wings reconfigured simultaneously, geometric patterns shifting to more aggressive configurations. The contamination speaks, the leader observed. Integrating celestial essence with opposing forces has corrupted its fundamental understanding. It perceives abomination as natural state. I perceive harmony where you insist on artificial separation, Issei countered, surprising himself with his philosophical certainty. The angelic aspect within him pulsed strongly, yet remained in balance with the other forces, not dominating but contributing to his integrated perspective. Your perception is irrelevant, the Purifier replied dismissively. Celestial essence must be reclaimed and purified. Surrender voluntarily or face compelled extraction. The Academy recognizes no authority for such action within its boundaries, Rossweiss stated definitively. Nor does multi-factional agreement permit unilateral purification of beings with mixed heritage without consent from all relevant factions. Bureaucratic constraints do not override cosmic necessities, the Purifier responded. Final opportunity for voluntary compliance. Issei felt the situation balancing on a knife's edge. Unlike the dragon hunters who could be outwitted or intimidated, these beings operate from absolute conviction, their worldview permitting no compromise or negotiation. The angelic aspect within him responded to this realization with unexpected clarity. Unlike the draconic essence at urged confrontation or the devilish that suggested manipulation, the celestial component offered different insight, understanding the Purifier's perspective while recognizing its limitations. You believe you're preserving cosmic order. He addressed them directly. That separation between different supernatural essences represents necessary structure rather than arbitrary division. But conside, what if true cosmic order encompasses harmony between apparently opposing forces rather than their perpetual segregation? The question caused subtle disruption in the Purifier's perfect synchronization, their wing configurations momentarily falling out of alignment before reasserting uniformity. Corruption attempts philosophical subversion, the leader observed. Standard protocol in hybrid manifestations. Not subversion. Expansion, Issei pressed, following the angelic aspect's guidance while maintaining integration with his other natures. True celestial principle encompasses growth and evolution, not merely preservation of existing structures. Otherwise, creation itself would never have progressed beyond initial state. This argument created more pronounced disturbance among the Purifiers. Their geometric wings fluctuated through several configurations, suggesting internal processing of concepts that challenged fundamental assumptions. Unauthorized theological interpretation, the leader finally declared, indicative of deep corruption requiring immediate intervention. With that pronouncement, the Purifiers advanced simultaneously onto Academy grounds, crossing the boundary marker in clear violation of diplomatic protocols. Their wings reconfigured into offensive patterns, geometric light condensing into shapes that resembled weapons more than appendages. Defensive protocols activated, Rossweiss announced, her voice triggering academy-wide systems. The very structure around them shifted subtly, dimensional anchoring adjusting to create optimal defense. IV configuration while maintaining ethical constraints. They're attempting to isolate your angelic aspect, Akano warned, her tablet displaying complex energy patterns. Standard purification APRO, ACH, resonance targeting to separate integrated essences. Issei felt the effect immediately, a pulling sensation centered on the golden energy within him, as if invisible hands were attempting to extract it from his integrated circuit. The sensation wasn't precisely painful but profoundly disorienting, like having a fundamental piece of his identity gradually unraveled. Resist the separation, Akano instructed urgently. Maintain conscious integration. Easier said than done. The purifiers technique operated at fundamental levels, targeting the angelic essence's natural resonance with celestial principles. Each pulse of their synchronized wings sent harmonics that called to Issei's celestial component, urging it to return to proper alignment, separate from its contaminating associates. Rossweiss responded with impressive efficiency, triggering academy defenses that manifested as geometric counterpatterns, boundary enforcements that disrupted the purifiers, harmonics without directly attacking their persons. Unauthorized dimensional interference, the lead purifier declared. Escalation authorized. Their wings reconfigured again, generating concentrated beams of purify-in G light that sliced through the Academy's initial defenses. These weren't designed to kill but to excise, surgical removal of contamination, with clinical precision. Issei felt the angelic aspect within him responding to the purification energy, not surrendering to extraction but awakening to its own expression. Unlike the dragon essence that had manifested physically, this emergence took different form. The golden energy expanded through the stabilization circuit, illuminating Issei from within. His perception shifted dramatically, suddenly aware of underlying patterns connecting all reality. Fundamental geometries that sustained creation itself. Remarkable, Akano breathed, watching the circuit adapt to this new manifestation. Self-determined expression rather than forced extraction. With this expanded perception, Issei understood the purifiers more completely, seeing them not as enemies but as beings trapped within limited understanding of principles they sought to protect. Their rigid interpretation of cosmic order prevented them from recognizing the possibility of harmony through integration rather than segregation. I understand your perspective, he addressed them, his verses. OICE carrying subtle harmonics that matched then transcended their own. But I reject your conclusion. Light gathered around him, not external illumination but manifestation of internal essence. Unli, typical angelic expression that emphasized separation from material reality, this light integrated seamlessly with his physical form and other supernatural aspects. Gold radiance traced the circuit pathways across his chest, intertwining with crimson dragon essence and violet devil energy rather than excluding them. The purifiers faltered momentarily, their perfect synchronization disrupted by unexpected manifestation. Impossible configuration, the leader declared. Celestial essence cannot harmonize with opposing forces without corruption. Yet here I stand, Issei replied simply, ending his arms to demonstrate the integrated energies flowing visibly beneath his skin. Not corrupted but harmonized. Illusion, the leader decided. Deception through visual manipulation. No deception, Rossweiss countered, her expression reflecting professional fascination despite the tense circumstances. Academy sensors confirm genuine integration rather than superimposition. Irrelevant, the leader dismissed. Protocol mandates purification regardless of presentation. They advanced with renewed determination, their extraction beams intensifying. The Academy's defenses responded automatically. Dimensional boundaries thickening to absorb the celestial energy without retaliation that might escalate conflict. Issei felt the angelic aspect offering insight, not combat technique. UES but fundamental understanding of celestial principles the purifiers themselves had forgotten or ignored. With conscious intent, he shaped his integrated energy into a specific configuration, not a weapon but a demonstration. Golden light extended from his hands, forming a perfect geometric structure that expanded outward. Unlike the purifiers' rigid patterns, this construction adapted continuo. USLY, incorporating elements from multiple supernatural traditions while maintaining perfect internal harmony. Dragon fire traced pathways between celestial vertices, devilish flexibility allowed constant adaptation without losing fundamental stability. The manifestation expanded until it surrounded both Issei and the advancing purifiers within a shared geometric space, a microcosm demonstrating integration without corruption. Harmony without compromise of essential natures. This is what you've forgotten. Issei addressed them, his voice gentle despite the confrontational circumstances. True. Celestial principle never demanded isolation, only harmony. Separation was means, not end, temporary scaffolding for eventual reunification. The purifiers stood immobilized within the geometric demo. NST ration. Not constrained physically but conceptually challenged beyond their rigid programming. Their wings flickered through dozens of configurations, seeking patterns that could counter this unexp. CTED philosophical argument manifested in pure celestial language. Unauthorized interpretation, the leader insisted, though with noticeably diminished certainty. Corruption through philosophical subversion. Not subversion. Rossweiss interjected unexpectedly. Revelation. He's demonstrating original celestial principles that predate current factional interpretations. The Academy's historic AL archives contain references to integrated celestial philosophy before the Great Segregation. Irrelevant historical context, the leader countered, though several purifiers displayed visible hesitation. Current protocols supersede obsolete interpretations. Do they? Issei challenged gently. Or have you mistaken the means for the end? What if separation was never the goal, but merely preparation for higher integration? The geometric demonstration surrounding them shifted again, incorporating additional dimensions perceivable through celestial senses. Within this expanded framework, the apparent contradictions between different supernatural essences resolved into complementary aspects of more complex unified principles. Two purifiers stepped backward, their wings reconfiguring T.O. neutral patterns, signs of internal reconsideration if not outright acceptance. The leader maintained offensive configuration, though diminished in intensity. This confrontation cannot reach resolution through current parameters. The leader finally declared, a remarkable concession from beings typically unbending in their certainty. The contamination demonstrates unanticipated configurations requiring hierarchical review. In simple terms, Rossweiss translated with subtle satisfaction, they're retreating to consult higher authorities because you've presented theological arguments beyond their programming parameters. Provisional withdrawal, the leader corrected stiffly. Pending comprehensive analysis and protocol revision. This matter remains unresolved. The Academy acknowledges your position. Rossweiss replied formally, maintaining diplomatic convention despite her evident satisfaction at their retreat. The purifiers withdrew in perfect synchronization, their wings reconfiguring to travel formation as they departed across the crystalline bridge. Only when they had completely exited Academy boundaries did Issei release his geometric demonstration, the Golden Lie. Chi retracting gradually back into his integrated circuit. That, Rossweiss stated with professional appreciation, was the most elegant application of integrated celestial principle I've ever witnessed. Particularly from someone with supposedly minimal training. It wasn't conscious technique, Issei admitted, feeling sudden fatigue as the manifestation subsided. The angelic aspect simply showed me what to do. Intuitive application rather than trained implementation, Rossweiss noted. Even more remarkable, the circuit maintained perfect stability throughout, Akino added, Revi. Wing data on her tablet with evident satisfaction. The angelic aspect expressed fully without diminishing other elements. Unlike my draconic manifestation, which initially wanted dominance, Issei observed. Different natures express differently, Rossweiss explained. Draconic essence tends toward physical manifestation and dominance, celestial toward conceptual demonstration and harmony, Evilish toward adaptive transformation and autonomy. You've studied hybrid manifestations extensively, Akino noted, professional curiosity evident. Necessity rather than merely academic interest, Rossweiss replied. Something personal briefly visible beneath her professional demeanor. The Academy serves many students with mixed heritages or non-standard manifestations. Issei leaned against the terrace railing. Unexpectedly drained. The angelic manifestation had required different energy than draconic expression, mental and spiritual rather than physical, but no less demanding. They'll return, he said quietly, watching the direction the purifiers had departed. Eventually, Rossweiss agreed. But with modified approach, you've created theological uncertainty where before they possessed only absolute conviction. That alone represents significant achievement. Not to mention demonstrating the Academy's willingness to defend philosophical principles, Akino added. Your response was perfectly calibrated, defensive rather than aggressive, educational rather than confrontational. The Boundary Academy stands for integration and understanding, not merely peaceful coexistence of segregated traditions. Rossweiss stated, principle evident beneath professional composure. Today you demonstrated that philosophy more effectively than any academic argument could. Issei straightened, gathering himself despite lingering fatigue. We should return to Azazel's facility. The factional observers will arrive soon, and our absence would create unnecessary complications. A practical consideration, Rossweiss acknowledged, though I hope this represents beginning rather than conclusion of our association. She extended a small crystalline device, similar to a business card but containing dimensional properties beyond simple information. This grants direct communication access and emergency transportation to Academy grounds should circumstances require it. Issei accepted the token with appropriate gravity, recognizing the significant trust it represented. Thank you for both the invitation and the demonstration of integrated principles. Your manifestation provided more education for my students than a semester of theoretical lectures, Rossweiss replied with unexpected warmth. The Academy benefits more from this exchange than you might realize. Their departure proceeded efficiently, Eagle escorting them back to the observation point through dimensional shortcuts that compressed physical distance without typical teleportation discomfort. Throughout the journey, Rossweiss maintained professional discussion of theoretical implications from Issei's manifestation, though her analytical questions contained genuine curiosity beneath academic formality. At the observation point, she addressed Issei directly while Eagle prepared their return passage. The traditional factions will attempt to interpret your manifestations according to their established paradigms. Remember that their understanding is constrained by historical divisions that may no longer serve creation's evolving purpose. You believe these divisions are becoming obsolete? Issei asked, intrigued by her philosophical perspective. I believe they were always meant to be temporary, she replied with surprising conviction. Necessary developmental stages rather than permanent cosmic architecture. The statement contained implications that extended far beyond Issei's personal situation, suggesting fundamental shifts in supernatural cosmic understanding that would inevitably generate resistance from established powers. That perspective would be considered heretical by most traditional factions, Akino observed neutrally. Truth often appears heretical before it becomes obvious. Rossweiss responded simply. The Academy exists to explore possibilities beyond current factional limitations, as does Issei himself, in more literal embodiment. Their conversation concluded with formal but genuine expressions of mutual respect, Rossweiss returning to her academy while Akino and Issei continued toward Azazel's facility. The journey back through celestial influence (CED) territory proceeded without further incident, though Issei remained conscious of the angelic aspect maintaining slightly elevated expression following its earlier manifestation. The confrontatio with the purifier's forced accelerated development, Akino noted as they walked, monitoring the circuit's configuration on her tablet. Your angelic aspect has established stable expression parameters more quickly than anticipated. Is that concerning? Quite the opposite, she replied with evident satisfaction. Balanced development across all three aspects creates more stable integration than sequential awakening. The dragon essence's initial dominance created potential imbalance that today's manifestation helps correct. It felt different from the draconic expression, Issei observed. Less physical, more conceptual. Celestial power operates primarily through principle rather than force, Akino explained. Its fundamental nature concerns pattern and structure rather than raw energy or adaptive transformation. Rossweiss seemed to think my approach was unconventional. Because it was genuinely integrated rather than merely celestial, Akino confirmed. You didn't express pure angelic principle, you demonstrated how celestial patterns can incorporate and enhance draconic and devilish elements rather than excluding them. The insight resonated with Issei's expertise. NCE, he hadn't suppressed his other aspects to manifest the angelic, but rather incorporated their strengths within celestial framework. That integration frightens traditional factions, doesn't it? Terrifies them. Akino corrected bluntly. It challenges fundamental assumptions that have structured supernatural society for millennia. The purifiers' reaction was extreme but not unexpected. Present existential challenge to their worldview. And Rosweiss, where does she stand in all this? Akino considered before answering. She occupies complicated position, technically celestial ally. GNED through Asgardian connection but operating independently from traditional hierarchies. The Academy represents her response to perceived limitations in factional thinking. After a moment, she added more personally. I believe she sees in you confirmation of theoretical principles she's advocated despite significant opposition. Making me valuable beyond my personal abilities, Issei surmised. A living demonstration of her philosophical position. Precisely, Akino confirmed, though her interest appeared genuine rather than merely instrumental. They continued in thoughtful silence. Until reaching the boundary of Azazel's property, where the fallen angel waited with characteristic casual posture belied by alert attention. Productive excursion? He inquired, falling into step beside them. Educational, Issei replied succinctly. With unexpected complications, Akino added, briefing him on the confrontation with heaven's purifiers. Azazel whistled softly. Purification Co. RPS involvement escalates matters considerably. They operate semi-autonomously from standard celestial hierarchy, meaning official representatives might disavow their actions while privately supporting them. Expecting Heaven's observer to maintain plausible deniability, Issei asked. Standard celestial diplomatic approach, Azazel confirmed cynically. Official representatives maintain technical adherence to agreements while specialized units operate outside formal constraints. The angelic aspect manifested effectively despite the confrontation, Akino reported, showing him the circuit data on her tablet. Conceptual expression rather than physical, remarkably stable integration with other elements. Fascinating development pattern, Azazel observed, studying the information with genuine interest. Most hybrids struggle with celestial integration specifically because angelic essence typically demands exclusivity rather than accommodation. They reached the facility's central courtyard just as a formal arrival notification chimed softly throughout the structure. Perfect timing, Azazel noted. Heaven's observer arrives precisely as scheduled. Haniel has always valued punctuality above most virtues. I should refresh the circuit before formal introductions, Akino decided, gesturing for Issei to follow her toward the laboratory. I'll manage diplomatic preliminaries, Azazel agreed. Though I expect today's observer will be significantly more interested in Issei's condition after the purifiers report their unexpected encounter. The laboratory provided welcome respite, a controlled environment where Issei could process the morning's experiences while Akino adjusted the stabilization circuit to accommodate his expanded angelic expression. The celestial aspect has achieved remarkable integration, she noted as she worked, her fingers tracing the glowing pathways across his chest with professional precision. Particularly considering the confrontational circumstances of its awakening. It felt natural, Issei reflected. Not forcing the different aspects to cooperate, but recognizing how they complement each other. That perspective itself represents significant evolution from conventional understanding, Akino observed. Traditional supernatural philosophy emphasizes fundamental opposition between different cosmic forces. The very concept of complementary integration challenges millennia of established doctrine. Which explains the purifiers' reaction, Issei concluded. And potentially the reception awaiting us upstairs. Akino completed her adjustments, the circuit settling into new configuration that accommodated enhanced angelic expression while maintaining overall balance. There, she said with evident satisfaction. This old provides stable foundation for interaction with Heaven's representative. Though I recommend cautious philosophical discussion given today's earlier confrontation. Diplomatic restraint rather than open challenge, Issei surmised. Precisely. Haniel represents Heaven's official hierarchy rather than zealot fringe. His approach will be more measured but potentially more dangerous in subtle ways. They proceeded to the reception hall where Azazel was already engaged in formal diplomatic exchange with the celestial observer. Haniel presented striking contrast to the featureless purifiers. His appearance classically angelic with golden hair, perfect features, and 12 wings of immaculate white feathers currently folded gracefully against his back. He wore formal celestial attire that's Omhao appeared simultaneously traditional and timeless, robes of material that captured and enhanced light without ostentation. Ah, Issei, Azazel greeted with careful neutrality. May I present Hanyel, virtue of the third celestial choir and heaven's appointed observer for your development process. The angel turned toward them, his expression conveying perfect serenity that nonetheless failed to completely conceal analytical assessment. His gaze moved immediately to Issei's chest where the stabilization circuit remained visible beneath his shirt, golden energy pulsing slightly more prominently than during previous interactions. Issei Hyodo, Hanyel acknowledged, his voice carrying subtle harmonic resonance without the discordant quality that had characterized the purifier's speech. Your existence presents unique circumstances requiring careful consideration by all concerned factions. An understated assessment, Azazel murmured with barely suppressed amusement. Hanyel ignored the fallen angel's commentary, focusing entirely on Issei. I understand you experienced interaction with celestial representatives earlier today. Unofficial representatives, he clarified meaningfully. The Purification Corps expressed concerns regarding my integrated nature, Issei confirmed carefully, following Akino's advice regarding diplomatic restraint. Their perspective represents one interpretation of celestial principle, Hanyel stated with perfect diplomatic ambiguity. Heaven encompasses diverse philosophical positions regarding supernatural integration. How diplomatic, Azazel observed dryly, avoiding either endorsement or condemnation of attempted forced purification. Hanyel finally acknowledged the fallen angel with a measured glance. The Grigori representative continues his tradition of provocative commentary without constructive contribution. I prefer cutting through bureaucratic obfuscation, Azazel replied cheerfully. But terminology aside, perhaps we might address the substance of today's observation period rather than diplomatic positioning. Indeed, Hanyel agreed smoothly, returning his attention to Issei. My function involves assessment of celestial aspect expression and integration within your unique configuration. The stabilization circuit appears to be functioning effectively despite unusual manifestation patterns. Manifestation patterns? Issei inquired, conscious of careful diplomatic territory. Reports indicate conceptual geometric demonstration rather than standard celestial expression, Hanyel elaborated. Particula. RLY noteworthy given your limited formal training. Intuitive application, Akino explained professionally. The angelic aspect responded to specific circumstances with appropriate expression. Most intriguing, Hanyel noted with perfect composure that nevertheless conveyed intense interest. Celestial essence typically requires structured guidance rather than intuitive manifestation. The conversation continued in this vein, Hanyel asking precise questions about Issei's experience while carefully avoiding direct reference to the confrontational nature of the earlier encounter. His approach represented perfect celestial diplomacy, gathering comprehensive information while maintaining plausible deniability regarding unofficial actions. Throughout this exchange, Issei felt the angelic aspect within him responding to Hanyel's presence, not with the defensive reaction it had shown toward the purifiers, but with recognition of authentic celestial authority. The golden energy maintained balanced integration while acknowledging connection to its heritage. Your development proceeds more rapidly than anticipated, Hanyel eventually concluded, particularly regarding integration rather than compartmentalization of disparate essences. Most unprecedented. Is that assessment positive or concerning from heaven's perspective? Issei asked directly, testing diplomatic boundaries. Hanyel's perfect composure revealed nothing beyond carefully measured response. Heaven's perspective encompasses multiple considerations regarding unprecedented supernatural phenomena. Your development will be monitored with appropriate attention to both traditional principles and emerging possibilities. Masterful non-answer, Azazel commented appreciatively. Celestial diplomatic training remains unparalleled in supernatural politics. Quote, the Grigori representative's commentary is noted, Hanyel replied without inflection. He returned his attention to Issei. I would request demonstration of errant celestial manifestation capabilities, if circumstances permit. For objective assessment or strategic evaluation. Akino asked with subtle challenge. All observation serves multiple functions. Hanyel acknowledged without apparent discomfort. Information benefits proper understanding regardless of perspective. Issei considered the request carefully. Demonstration would reveal capability It is already witnessed by the purifiers, potentially providing context for official response to unofficial actions. Refusal would create unnecessary tension without protecting information already compromised. Limited demonstration seems reasonable, he decided. Though my control remains developmental rather than mastered. Understanding limitations constitutes essential aspect of accurate assessment, Hanyel assured him. They relocated to the training courtyard, its specialized construction designed to accommodate various supernatural manifestations safely. Azazel activated additional monitoring systems, ostensibly for data collection but clearly also serving protective function given earlier confrontations. Proceed at your discretion, Hanyel invited, positioning himself at formal observational distance. Issei centered himself, connecting consciously with the angelic aspect that had manifested earlier. Unlike the dragon essence that required emotional intensity to awaken, celestial component responded to conceptual focus, principles and patterns rather than primal instincts. The golden energy expanded through the circuit pathways, illuminating Issei from within as it had during the confrontation with the purifiers. His perception shifted once more, suddenly aware of fundamental patterns connecting physical reality to underlying metaphysical structures. With conscious intent, he manifested the geometric demonstration he had created earlier, a complex three-dimensional structure that incorporated elements from different supernatural traditions within unified celestial framework. Dragon fire traced connections between celestial vertices. Devilish adaptability allowed continuous reconfiguration while maintaining fundamental harmony. Hanyel observed with perfect composure. Though subtle shifts in his celestial aura suggested significant interest beneath diplomatic reserve. Remarkable integration, he noted eventually. The celestial framework incorporates, rather than suppresses opposing essences. Most unprecedented. As such integration concerning from traditional celestial perspective. Issei asked, maintaining the manifestation while engaging in conversation. Traditional perspective encompasses multiple interpretations, Hanyel replied characteristically. After brief consideration, he added with unusual directness, some would consider such integration fundamentally destabilizing to established cosmic architecture. Others might recognize potential evolution beyond current limitations. And your assessment? Issei pressed gently. My unction involves observation rather than conclusion at this stage, Hanyel replied, returning to perfect diplomatic neutrality. Though I will note that creation itself has never remained static despy. Occasional institutional preference for stability over evolution. The statement contains subtle but significant indication of philosophical flexibility beyond stereotypical celestial rigidity. Jesting Hanyel himself might occupy more nuanced position than his formal role indicated. The celestial aspect maintains remarkable stability despite integrated expression, Akino observed, monitoring the circuit's performance. No indications of corruption or degradation despite incorporating traditionally opposing elements. A significant observation, Hanyel acknowledged. Traditional doct. Rhine holds that integration inevitably leads to corruption of celestial essence. Empirical evidence suggesting otherwise merits careful consideration. The demonstration concluded without incident, geometric manifestation dissolving gradually as Issei released the focused expression. Unlike the physical fatigue that followed draconic manifestation, this experience left mental rather than body. Exhaustion. The effort of maintaining complex conceptual structures taxing different resources. Your control demonstrates remarkable development for early manifestation stage, Hanyel concluded. Quote, particularly noteworthy given simultaneous management of opposing essences. Not opposing but complementary, Issei corrected gently, following intuitive understanding from the angelic aspect itself. Different expressions of fundamental principles rather than contradictory forces. Hanyel regarded him with unreadable expression before responding. An interpretation with significant theological implications. Heaven's counsels will find your perspective enlightening. The diplomatic exchange continued through formal conclusion, Hanyel maintaining perfect celestial protocol while gathering comprehensive information regarding Issei's development. Throughout their interaction, the angel demonstrated precise balance between official responsibility and personal curiosity, never overstepping diplomatic boundaries while clearly fascinated by unprecedented manifestation. After Hanyel's departure, Issei collapsed onto a bench in the courtyard, finally surrendering to accumulated fatigue from the day's multiple challenges. Are all angelic interactions so exhausting? He asked ruefully. Celestial diplomacy demands precision that most find mentally taxing, Azazel confirmed, seating himself nearby. Particularly when navigating complex political implications beneath surface courtesy. Haniel's assessment seemed more measured than the purifier's reaction, Issei observed. Different celestial factions with different approaches, Azazel explained. The purifiers represent absolutist tradition, Haniel embodies administrative pragmatism. Both serve heaven's interests through different methodologies. Playing different roles within coordinated strategy, Akino elaborated. Official representatives maintain diplomatic propriety while unofficial elements pursue more aggressive approaches. Standard celestial politics. So today's seemingly separate encounters were actually connected. Issei realized. Almost certainly, Azazel confirmed. The purifiers, intervention PR. Audited direct assessment of your capabilities while Haniel's official observation maintained diplomatic deniability. Perfect celestial efficiency. Manipulative, Issei noted with disapproval. Political, Azazel corrected pragmatically. Every faction employs similar strategies through different methodologies. Devils operate through contractual technicalities, dragons through dominance displays, angels through tiered interventions maintaining plausible separation. Which doesn't make it ethical, Issei maintained. A perspective reflecting your integrated nature, Akino observed thoughtfully. Each aspect contributing different ethical framework toward unified principle rather than compartmentalized application. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent notification tone, different from standard alerts. Suggesting unexpected development requiring immediate attention. Azazel accessed the notification through a floating display that materialized beside him. His expression shifted from casual interest to focused concern. It appears Heaven's factions aren't the only ones coordinating complex strategies today. What's happening? Issei asked, tension returning despite physical fatigue. Multiple breach attempts at Boundary Academy perimeter, Azazel reported grimly. Pattern suggests coordinated assault rather than isolated intrusion. The purifiers returning with reinforcements. Issei surmised, already rising despite exhaustion. Different signature pattern, Azazel corrected, examining the data with professional assessment. This bears infernal characteristics, specifically. Unauthorized devil faction rather than official representation. Rogue devils targeting the academy. Akino asked with evident concern. Why now specifically? Opportunistic timing, Azazel concluded. The purifiers' earlier confrontation likely revealed both Issei's connection to the academy and Rosweiss's willingness to defend him against factional pressure. Perfect opportunity for elements seeking to discredit both simultaneously. We need to help them, Issei decided immediately. The academy possesses substantial defensive capabilities, Azazel cautioned. Anne D. Rosweiss herself is formidable tactician. Against conventional threats, certainly, Akino acknowledged. But coordinated assault specifically targeting dimensional anchoring vulnerabilities might overwhelm standard protocols. Issei reached into his pocket, retrieving the crystalline communication device Rosweiss had provided earlier. The token pulsed with urgent notification, confirming the situation's severity. She's requesting assistance, he announced, the device transmitting information directly to his awareness rather than through conventional communication. The attack targets students specifically. Not just academy infrastructure. They're attempting to capture rather than merely destroy. The implications clarified immediately. This assault represented something more saint-rategic than mere opportunistic destruction. The academy's students, many with mixed heritages or unconventional abilities, represented valuable resources to unethical factions within supernatural society. No time for diplomatic consultation, Azazel decided, switching instantly from casual commentator to decisive commander. Direct intervention required. The boundary violation supersedes factional protocols. The circuit should accommodate additional manifestation despite today's earlier exertion, Akino assessed, checking her tablet quickly. Though integrated approach rather than isolated aspects would minimize strain. Issei nodded, already centering himself despite lingering fatigue. The day's challenges had awakened aspects of his nature in accelerated sequence, draconic dominance followed by angelic integration. Now circumstances demanded further development, pushing beyond comfortable limitations toward necessary capability. The token provides emergency transport directly to Academy grounds, he explained, holding the crystalline device that continued pulsing with urgent notification. Keyed specifically to my energy signature but adaptable to accompanying allies. Efficient design, Azazel approved, placing his hand on Issei's shoulder. Rosweiss's tactical foresight remains impressive despite her academic transition. Akano positioned herself similarly, completing their connection. The circuit will stabilize transport integration, she assured Issei, her free hand activating additional protective parameters on her tablet. Issei activated the token with conscious intent, channeling energy through the crystalline structure. The device responded immediately, expanding dimensional parameters around their connected forms. Unlike conventional teleportation that transferred beings between fixed points, this transportation shifted dimensional anchoring itself, moving them between overlapping realities without traversing intervening space. The Sensat Ion differed dramatically from previous supernatural travel, neither disorienting nor uncomfortable, but rather like stepping through a door into a adjoining room that somehow existed in different dimensional alignment. One moment they stood in Azazel's courtyard, the next they materialized within Boundary Academy's central atrium. Chaos greeted their arrival. The previously harmonious space showed signs of ongoing conflict, dimensional stability fluctuating in sections where attackers had targeted anchoring points, defensive protocols manifesting as geometric barriers against continuing assault. Academy students and faculty maintained coordinated defense, their diverse supernatural abilities united through Rosweiss's tactical direction. The former Valkyrie herself stood at the atrium's center, simultaneously directing defensive operations and maintaining core dimensional anchoring through complex magical implementation. Her academic appearance had transformed completely, battle armor replacing scholarly attire. Ancient Asgardian runes glowing across its surface. Most notably, she wielded energy in distinctly Valkyrie tradition, silver-blue power forming precise geometries that countered dimensional disruption attempts. She acknowledged their arrival with professional nod, never pausing in her defensive operations. Appreciative of prompt response, she stated with battlefield efficiency. Attackers target dimensional anchoring while attempting student extraction. Primary focus on those with hybrid heritage or rare abilities. Coordinated strategy, Azazel assessed immediately. Multiple objectives beyond mere destruction. Precisely, Rosweiss confirmed. They've breached secondary quadrants despite containment protocols. Eagle leads student protection detail in Aya. Stern wing while faculty maintains central anchoring. The situation clarified through her concise battlefield assessment. The attackers pursued complex objectives requiring both academy destabilization and specific target acquisition. Their strategy suggested professional implementation rather than merely opportunistic assault. Identified leadership, Azazel inquired, already summoning his own power. 12 black wings manifesting as he shifted to combat readiness. Fennec's faction renegades, Rosweiss replied grimly. Operating without house sanction but utilizing family techniques. Region. Orative capabilities complicate conventional neutralization. I know their weaknesses, Akano stated with unexpected intensity. Violet lightning gathered around her hands, her half-fallen nature man. Eye festing more prominently than Issei had previously witnessed. Fennec's regeneration fails against specific frequency disruption. Eastern Quadrant requires immediate reinforcement, Rosweiss directed. Students remain primary protection priority. Issei assessed the situation with growing strategic clarity, not merely reacting to immediate threat but understanding broader tactical implications. The day's experiences had awakened different aspects of his nature sequentially, each contributing unique perspective to his integrated understanding. The dragon essence provided instinctive threat assessment and power application. The angelic aspect offered structural comprehension of the dimensional attacks. The devil component analyzed underlying motivations and strategic objectives. Together, they created comprehensive understanding beyond what any single perspective could provide. All reinforce the Eastern Quadrant, he decided. My integrated abilities should counter regenerative C-AP abilities while supporting dimensional stability. Rosweiss nodded approval. Azazel, Western approach requires experienced containment. Akano, your disruption techniques would prove most effective against central assault force. They separated with battlefield efficiency, each moving toward assigned sectors without wasted discussion. Issei navigated through shifting academy corridors toward the Eastern Quadrant. following both Rosweiss's directions and his own enhanced perception of dimensional stress patterns. The Academy's structure continued adapting despite attack, corridors recon, figuring to optimize defensive positioning while maintaining escape routes for vulnerable students. This dynamic architecture, impressive during peaceful operation, demonstrated remarkable resilience under direct assault. Issei reached the eastern quadrant to find Eagle coordinating student evacuation while maintaining defensive perimeter against persistent attackers. The academic associate's soup, our natural nature manifested more prominently under pressure, runes glowing visibly beneath his skin as he generated protective barriers around younger students. The attackers presented uniform apparon, CE despite individual variations in ability, all bearing distinct characteristics of Fennec's lineage. Their most notable feature was partial transformation into fire forms that allowed regeneration from conventional damage. Flames constantly reconstructing physical bodies from even significant injury. Reinforcement appreciated, Eagle acknowledged tersely, maintaining concentration on protective BA. RRIERS while directing student movement toward safer zones. Issei assessed the tactical situation quickly. Approximately 7 attackers maintained persistent assault against Eagle's defenses. There are regenerative abilities allowing continuous pressure without vulnerability to normal countermeasures. Their objective appeared to be specific students rather than mere destruction, targeting those displaying unusual or hybrid supernatural characteristics. Drawing on his integrated abilities, Issei manifested combined expression rather than isolated aspects. The stabilization circuit distributed energy perfectly, allowing simultaneous access to different supernatural capabilities without imbalance or conflict. Dragon Essence provided physical enhancement and flame manipulation, particularly useful against Fennec's regeneration that operated through similar principles. Angelic Aspect offered dimensional perception and structured countermeasures against their spatial distortion techniques. Devil Component contributed analytical insight into their motivations and psychological vulnerabilities. Focus on evacuation, Issei instructed Eagle. I'll maintain perimeter against regenerative capabilities. The academic associate nodded gratefully, redirecting his efforts toward student protection rather than continuous defense. This tactical adjustment allowed more efficient evacuation while Issei engaged the attackers directly. His approach differed fundamentally from conventional combat methodology. Rather than attacking physical forms that would simply regenerate, he targeted the underlying principles that enabled regeneration itself. Combining draconic fire manipulation with angelic structural comprehension, he created countering resonance that disrupted the Fennec's flame's reconstructive properties. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The attacker's regenerative capabilities faltered as their flames encountered energy patterns that interfered with fundamental reconstruction principles. Their previously relentless advance hesitated as they encountered unexpected resistance to their core methodology. Impossible countermeasure. One attacker hissed, flames flickering era. Chickly as regeneration failed repeatedly. No single being should comprehend disruption patterns at that level. Not single perspective but integrated understanding, Issei corrected, maintaining he disruptive field while advancing steadily. The Fennec's renegades adjusted quickly despite their surprise, demonstrating professional adaptability beyond common supernatural criminals. They shifted formation to concentrate efforts against Issei specifically, recognizing primary threat to their operational capabilities. Priority target identified, their apparent leader communicated. Acquisitee. On parameters adjusted to include hybrid manifestation. Extraction teams converge on Eastern Quadrant. The tactical situation shifted immediately, their objective expanding from student acquisition to include Issei himself. This adjustment confirms sophisticated command structure beyond immediate assault team, suggesting coordinated strategy rather than isolated opportunism. Eagle continued evacuation efforts while Issei maintained defensive perimeter, their cooperation creating effective protection despite continued assault. The Academy's architecture supported their efforts, corridors figuring to optimize evacuation routes while complicating attackers' approach vectors. The confrontation escalated as additional Fennec's operatives redirected toward their position, drawn by leaders' updated priorities. Issei found himself facing increasingly coordinated opposition as attackers adapted to his disruption techniques with professional efficiency. Rather than maintaining purely defensive position, he shifted to controlled offensive implementation, not merely preventing their advance but actively disrupting their operational cohesion. Drawing on integrated abilities, he created environmental conditions fundamentally incompatible with their methodology. Draconic fire manipulation established dominance over their flame-based regeneration. Angelic dimensional comprehension disrupted their spatial techniques. Devilish analytical insight anticipated tactical adjustments before implementation. These combined capabilities created comprehensive countermeasure against their specialized abilities. The attackers faltered under this integrated opposition, their regenerative advantages neutralized while conventional vulnerabilities remained exploitable. Their tactical cohesion degraded as individual operators encountered unprecedented countermeasures beyond standard response parameters. Eastern Quadrant secured, Eagle reported, completing student evacuation to protected secondary location. All vulnerable assets transferred to containment zones. Issei maintained pressure against retreating attackers, preventing regrouping while avoiding unnecessary escalation. His objective remained defensive rather than punitive, protection rather than retribution, guiding tactical decisions despite combat circumstances. Across the academy, similar scenarios unfolded as Azazel and Akeno implemented their assigned countermeasures against corresponding assault teams. Azazel's millennia of tactical experience proved devastating against Western approach forces. Akeno's specialized disruption techniques neutralized Central Assault Team with clinical efficiency. Rossweiss coordinated overall defense from the atrium, simultaneously maintaining dimensional anchoring while directing faculty response to changing tactical situations. Her Valkyrie training manifested in perfect battlefield management, assessing developments, adjusting allocations, and maintaining strategic objective despite chaotic circumstances. The tide turned definitively when Issei rejoined Central Operations after securing Eastern Quadrant. His arrival coincided with Azazel and Akeno's successful containment of their respective sectors, creating combined capability that overwhelmed remaining opposition. Faced with coordinated resistance beyond their operational parameters, the attackers initiated withdrawal protocols, not chaotic retreat but organized extraction designed to preserve capabilities for future operations. Their discipline even in defeat confirmed professional implementation rather than merely opportunistic assault. Dimensional stability restored to nominal parameters, Rossweiss announced as withdrawal completed, her battle armor still active despite conclusion of immediate threat. Academy defenses recalibrating to prevent similar vulnerability exploitation. Professional implementation, Azazel observed, his fallen angel manifestation receding as combat necessity diminished. Strategic objectives beyond mere destruction or acquisition. Assessment confirmed, Rossweiss agreed grimly. This operation targeted both physical assets and intelligence gathering. Our withdrawal preserved operational capability despite tactical defeat. They were testing defenses while attempting acquisition, Akeno concluded, her lightning subsiding as she reviewed data on her tablet. Gathering information for future operations as much as seeking immediate success. A concerning development, Issei noted, allowing his manifested abilities to recede gradually. Their target selection focused specifically on hybrid beings or those with unusual abilities. Continuation of established pattern, Rossweiss confirmed. Similar operations have targeted isolated individuals with mixed heritage or unconventional abilities across boundary zones. The Academy represents concentrated collection of such beings, making it high-value target despite enhanced defenses. The timing suggests opportunistic exploitation of celestial confrontation, Azazel analyzed. They anticipated defensive focus on northern approaches following Purifier interaction, creating vulnerability in eastern and western quadrants. Indicating coordinated intelligence gathering beyond isolated factions, Rossweiss concluded. Someone connects information across traditional boundaries, identifying tactical opportunities that transcend conventional factional limitations. The implications settled heavily, not merely responding to isolated incidents but potentially confronting coordinated Rated G targeting beings that existed outside traditional supernatural categories. The Academy's students, Issei himself, and others with mixed heritages represented both opportunity and threat to established power structures across supernatural society. We should return before factional observers notice extended absence, Akeno suggested practically. The devil representative arrives imminently. And Heaven's observer will certainly report today's activities through official channels. A pragmatic consideration, Rossweiss acknowledged. Though this confrontation raises questions requiring continued exploration beyond immediate tactical response. We'll maintain communication through secure channels, Azazel promised. Today's events connect to broader developments requiring cooperate attention despite traditional factional separation. Issei approached Rossweiss directly while Azazel and Akino prepared transport arrangements. The Academy's students were targeted specifically, he observed. Not collateral damage but primary objectives. Your assessment aligns with tactical analysis, she confirmed gravely. Beings existing beyond traditional categories represent both potential threat and valuable resource to various factions. The Academy provides educational opportunity but limited protection against coordinated acquisition attempts. Which makes cooperation beyond traditional boundaries necessary rather than merely philosophical, Issei concluded. Precisely, Rossweiss agreed with unexpected intensity. Integration represents practical necessity rather than merely theoretical preference. Today demonstrated both vulnerability of isolated defense and effectiveness of cooperative response. Their conversation concluded with formal yet genuine expressions of mutual respect. Rossweiss returning to Academy reconstruction while Issei rejoined Azazel and Akino for return transportation. The journey back utilized conventional teleportation rather than Rossweiss's specialized dimensional transition, Azazel's magic providing efficient if less comfortable transit. They materialized within Azazel's facility just as notification systems announced the Devil representative's imminent arrival. Perfect timing once again, though achieved through hastened return rather than fortunate coincidence. The circuit maintained remarkable stability throughout combat application, Akino noted, checking her tablet with professional assessment. Integrated manifestation rather than isolated aspects distributed energy requirements efficiently despite previous exertion. A significant development pattern, Azazel observed. Most hybrid beings require extensive training before achieving simultaneous manifestation without imbalance or conflict. Issei nod. Acknowledgement while processing the day's extraordinary experiences. From morning's exploration of angelic principles through confrontation with celestial zealots to defending the Academy against coordinated assault, each challenge had forced accelerated development beyond anticipated progression. Most significantly, each experience had reinforced integrated approach rather than isolated manifestation. His unique nature found greatest expression not through compartmentalized abilities but through harmonious implementation of complementary aspects, dragon, angel, and devil contributing distinct perspectives toward unified capability. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.